How's it going, the Whites and Fire fans? Grant from Yeecats Miniatures here, bringing you the next episode of our brand new revamped for Season 6 Faction Overview series. And this time is a very, very special occasion for me. It's the first time we've had Mickey on here talking about Free Folk. We've had him before speaking about other stuff, but first time about Free Folk. How's it going, Mickey?
Yeah, it's going all right. We've just spoken today on the day of recording, but I won't say that because it's a mystery. But feeling a little bit under the weather, so if my voice goes at any time today, Grant is going to impart all of this amazing wisdom that everybody knows I have. And yeah, totally, that's how it's going to work, right, Grant?
That's all right. In the edit, I can make you sound more husky and manly, so it's all good. I'll just edit it and tweak it a little bit.
Wow, better than any editing I've ever been able to do. This is why I do everything live.
Oh yeah, buddy, this way you're gonna sound Gerard Butler.
Oh, please don't send that to my wife though.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So we're gonna get stuck into Free Folk in Season 6. Have you managed to play? I know it's very, very early stages for Season 6, but have you managed to play a bit? Have you getting a feel for the season yet?
Yeah, so I've been playing Season 6. I haven't actually played any Free Folk, of all things, which is quite funny. But I have been playing the game in Season 6. And I think it's fair to say that I am more happy with Season 6 at the moment than I perhaps was in Season 5 or Season 4. And that's a good thing. And, you know, I hope to ride that out, take part in some of the online league event type things in the run-up to things like East Anglia GT and some of the other events we've got going on in the UK. So yeah, I'm actually, I would say that I'm not a 10 out of 10 game is amazing, but I'm certainly an 8 or a 9. Like, game's good.
I'll take that. It's good. It's good to have positivity in the community, mate. It's really, really good. And it's nice to hear you feeling positive about the game. There are some massive stuff. I mean, just on that, how do you feel Season 6 has been for Free Folk? Has it been kind to them? Obviously, we'll get to details in a minute.
Yeah, so I think it's a mixed bag. Season 5 Free Folk was good in some regard, but as anyone who saw the Invitational will know, Free Folk just didn't have a very good showing, partially through low pick rate and partially through what has been good in the kind of competitive scene, which we've seen, specifically Targaryens, obviously, and Brotherhood Without Banners. Now, the Brotherhood Without Banners was not really much of an issue for Free Folk, but Targaryen can be a very hit and miss matchup, especially those Drogo lists and Drogo games. And without going into details of what did happen at the Invitational, having a Drogo list that just charges and walks all over you with mass assault orders is difficult for some of those spam type lists that Free Folk are used to, because things do just die. That being said, I would say Free Folk were in a strong position. I perhaps didn't have the right lists for that event, but Free Folk were in a strong position. I do consider them still a very good faction just because of the mechanics of how they work. It's quite... I use the term abusable, as in because you can abuse certain game mechanics to really push an advantage. That doesn't mean you are abusing the game and the game is unfair, but you are using a mechanic to try and gain your advantages that manner than necessarily through, I just have good units on the board. And that can be quite hard for people to realise. It's quite hard for people to muster that, and quite hard for people to get wins with that kind of strategy. But that being said, I'm not sitting here thinking Free Folk were, trash. They couldn't win anything. That's evidently not true with the likes of Wales and things. But it's certainly been, Season 5 has been a hard time for Free Folk, and personally, I think one of the hardest periods Free Folk have had, probably since the 2021 update.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's been a lot less showings in tournaments from Free Folk, but I mean, the thing is with Free Folk is that there's been massive peaks and troughs between how good they are and how bad they've been. But what we will say for you, Mick, is that you played them through the good times and the bads, and you've always managed to do well with them. So, I mean, it goes to show that decent player skill will see you through the game. I think as well, when you see people like Larks have picked up Free Folk, and he was absolutely great with them. Swarvek was absolutely great with them. Jacob Bailey, so a good player with a good understanding of the game becomes really good with Free Folk. And I think I myself have never played Free Folk that much. Never really appealed to me the play style. I think I'm probably going to at some point, because eventually I'm going to run out of other stuff to buy. So I'm going to have to buy myself some cold tramps.
I can't abide this anymore. We're going to have to end the interview here. You've never played Free Folk? Tut tut tut.
I've been so easy playing into it, mate. I just got. It's confusing, isn't it? When you got so many units of the ball, I struggle.
You sometimes think, oh, these must be mine.
Can I move these ones? No, they're mine. Okay, fair. Cool. Okay, so cool. So let's get stuck into the first question for you then. So, first and foremost, so what is the faction's identity? We talked a little bit about some mechanics and stuff, but can you get more into the faction's identity and their playstyle?
Yeah, so I think there's a few identities which we would say that the faction has. Then we would say there's a few faction identities that work. So the prevailing factor of free folk is your orc slash Tyranid if you're coming across from 40k orcs and Tyranids. From other games, the literal horde mechanic. You are playing a mob. You are playing a horde. There's nothing particularly really good, but there's also there's just standout moments and flashes of brilliance, and there's nothing like top tier cream of the crop like this is the best thing you can possibly do, while also everything is just mediocre, and more importantly, you'll hear this word a lot today, efficient. We are very efficient. You are paying sometimes points just to have bodies on the board. And a lot of factions aren't doing that. They're paying points because they're having to buy armor value, they're having to buy morale value, they're having to buy keywords. Whereas I don't do that as a free folk player. I just buy man with stick. And sometimes man or woman, as we will see, as so many women in the free folk armies as well. Humans with stick is sometimes the most efficient thing you can do, and it pushes a certain archetype of just having, well, what happens if I just have more humans with sticks than anybody else? Answer: more things with more humans die. But no, that style and that strategy of just I will have a lot of things is quite common in free folk. There's also the other identity, which is you are quite literally this mishmash of a horde. And when you've got mishmashes of hordes, you end up welcoming outsiders. So you end up with this completely off-the-wall stuff in the likes of giants and mammoths and chariots pulled by dogs and just a very, very different mishmash of units coming together. And I will say from my perspective, although I'm a weird hobbyist, I like doing certain things in the hobby, not everything. But with free folk, you can really take each of the individual elements in their own directions and really make them their own. And that's fun in and of itself. But I will say that from my perspective, when I've been painting them, and I know OJ's free folk, if you've not seen them in the UK, are really nice. But I know for a fact with mine, I'm pretty fed up in painting brown. It was I don't know if you see my Chariot Grant where I painted the dead guy on the base, but it was painting a Lannister in purple and the silvery armor. And for once in my life, I genuinely thought, wow, this is awesome. I actually get to paint a guy in armor because it was the first time I'd ever done so for Song. I've probably painted 100 models, so just for Song. So yeah, no, that was nice. So yeah, we have this mishmash: the giant, the mag, the mighty, Wun Wun, your giants, your mammoths, those kind of monster mash we call it. That's combined with the likes of Varamyr, who we'll talk probably quite a lot about in terms of strategies. And you can run these kind of big bruiser lists where everything's just a giant and you go around smushing people. And I will add, while they've not historically been very good lists, they are typically the more popular end of the faction, because who doesn't want to just put giants on the field? And more importantly, who doesn't want to just put giants on the field and just shout smush and run forward and kill things?
And throw trees.
Throw trees. Hit people with trees. You know what a giant with a tree is? That's a big human with a big stick, right? Right. I mean, come on. I'd like to be a big human with a big stick. No innuendo intended. So, who doesn't want that? I can't ever sit here and say it's not fun. Of course it's fun. Is it particularly good? Not always the case. But we're not here just to talk about good. We talk about the game as a whole. So yeah, there's that's kind of those two archetypes. You can play those mid styles where you've got a mismatch and you kind of go towards more your 7 and 8 activation lists that other people might be playing the game in, but reasonably you're probably playing the unwashed horde mass or big stompy giant things. And we're the only faction in the game that doesn't do something conventional with its list building. we are always pushing these extremes quite often, and that's actually quite nice because you always know you're a little bit different when you're a free folk player, and it might be the missing brain cells, but it's actually the way we build lists. So
Okay, sweet. Well, let's get into these units then. So first and foremost, we have the free folk raiders. So normally I start these conversations by saying this is our basic 5-point unit from the starter set, but it's not. It's our basic 4-point unit from the starter set. They're kind of the heart of the free folk world. So they're a 4-point unit. They have movement of 5. They have a 6/5/4 attack profile that hits on a 4+. They have a 5+ armor and a 7+ morale. And they come with the rule disorganized. So this unit suffers +1 wound from failing panic tests. And they come with the rule adaptive. So you can reduce the cost of one attachment in this unit by 1 point. Obviously, this is to try and push you to take some more attachments, which Season 6 is already doing. Do you want to talk just a little bit about Free Folk Raiders, Mickey?
yeah, so I think the thing with free folk raiders is free folk have always relied on raiders to do something. That something doesn't have to be much, ironically, and we talk about that efficiency, and this is the first time where you'll really see it here. You are not paying for frills. This is a 4-point unit that if you're going to put attachments in it, it's kind of like you're paying 3 points. Now, it isn't 3 points. It's worth remembering that it still takes up 4 points in the list slot. Otherwise, a million activations. But you are paying for raw, unadulterated, basic stat for an activation. 5 move is completely fine, great. As long as it's not 4, I really don't care. It's good. 6/5/4, absolutely fine attack profile for a cheap unit. Can't really complain. 4+, well, I mean, if I hit on 3+, the game would be crazy. 5+, 7+, sure, defensively it sucks a little bit, but you know what? 5 up, at least sundering. They need sundering to do something, and maybe you'll save some hits. 7 up, yeah, the morale side, along with the disorganized, that's where it's going to hurt. But again, you can't really complain. You are just a man with stick, so I'd run away if someone was hitting me with a sword.
Yeah, that's very true. So in Season 6, do you feel they've are these still forming the core of the Free Folk army?
I think so. So they've had a bit of a weird lifestyle because raiders have always been the core, but not necessarily the most common unit in the list, and not necessarily even appearing in the list. But they are still the core. You still think about raiders when you build your lists. You still use them to build lists at a high level, even if they then end up all coming out at the end, because they're just so important. You're obviously going to need a few of units of these if you're playing any of the infantry-based lists because of Endless Horde anyway. So you're going to take raiders to a tournament with you, even if they're not in your list. So yeah, like these are a backbone, but like this weird backbone of sometimes they're the backbone without being there. They're just the framework with which people think and build free folk lists around. So, I've always talked about free folk lists as kind of like buckets and how you want to decide your buckets. And a lot of times you might be saying, right, well, I want to make a 9 activation list. Well, actually, what that is it's 9 free folk raider buckets, which you then might spice up with the extra points you've got in your list building, which in this case, old case in 40-point list, that would have been 4 extra, what I used to call flex points. Now it's your 4 flex points plus your 4 attachment points. So those extra points could be upgrading raiders into other stuff, as we'll see, or changing raiders out for something different, but you still think of it like that. I would recommend maybe taking a raider out for an NCU, for example. That would be a good choice. But that's how I think about it. I still think about these blocks of 4 into my list building, and that is purely because of what raiders have offered for such a long time. And I, even to this day in Season 6, when I think about my list building, still think about these blocks of 4 points and where I'm going to spend them and how they're going to be spent and how I'm going to get to the activations I want. Yeah, raiders are your bread. They're not your butter because they're not that tasty and look, they're not that fancy. But these are the bread of free folk. They need to be there even if you don't use them.
Yeah, just something else I'd like to pick up on as well is with the adaptive. So with the change to the extra points now on the attachments, do you think this has reduced the effective or reduced the sort of the choice of raiders, or does it mean you're looking to take perhaps a better 5-point unit and then use the 4-point attachment point, or are you still looking to put an adaptive unit in and then perhaps put in better attachments in. Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, and actually, it's a very interesting debate that even some of the better free vote players have been having. I think there is a lot of logic that suggests we should be moving towards some of those 5-point units. And as we discussed through to today, even my own thinking about moving away from the 4-point buckets, I'm in conflict myself. Maybe I'll move to the 5-point bucket now, and try and build lists that are that kind of way built. But that being said, there are always ways in which raiders with adaptive can be useful. There's always just a small utility piece that you can think, actually, this 1-point attachment in this 4-point unit for this 4-point unit, free attachment, nothing here I have to think about. That's actually just pretty useful to have around. Because it's 12 wounds, and there are very few things in the game that can do 12 wounds in one go now. Not impossible, not unheard of, and doesn't take much splash damage to get down to 10 or 9 wounds and be at risk of genuinely being killed. But there's very few things that do 12 wounds, and so knowing that you can just go, right, well, I'm going to absorb a charge and absorb a hit and not die. Like, I mean, you'll sometimes see I will celebrate getting armor saves with raiders because I just expect them to die. And like when I get 2 or 3 armor saves, I'm like, yeah, boys, we're in. We're absolutely in. And it's a very odd way of playing because I think a lot of time people are like, oh, I failed armor saves, I'm going to die. Whereas it makes the game a lot more enjoyable as a free folk player because every save that you make is like a win rather than every save you fail being a loss. So I'm always playing the game quite optimistically. It's also a facet of the 4+ to hit that unfortunately, unlike a lot of factions, sometimes we make attacks, and 4+ to hit is something you'll hear a lot about today. And a 4+ to hit with very few dice, sometimes they miss. And I have had many a time playing Free Folk, including even just at Wales, not too long ago, where I have made an attack, and I roll my attack dice, and the next words out of my mouth are, "Well, it's your turn." And that's, again, it's something you get used to in Free Folk, that if I can charge a unit of Tully Cavaliers and do like 1 wound with a unit of Raiders or 2 wounds with a unit of Raiders, or God forbid remove a horse by doing 3 wounds, I am over the moon. That is a good day at the office for that unit of Raiders.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So talking of staples, next up we have the Free Folk Trappers, and these guys were a massive part of a Free Folk army, let's say a couple of years ago, a few years ago. They were huge. So it's another 4-point unit, again available in the starter set. You have a movement of 6, so a nice fast unit. They have a short range wilding bow attack, which is a 6/5/4 attack profile, hitting on 4s. They come with the melee attack profile of crude weapons, which is a 5/4/3 5+ to hit, a 6+ armor save, and 8+ morale. So really, really jippy defense stats there. But they come with the order hidden trap. So when an unengaged enemy in long range performs any action, before resolving the action, choose 1. That enemy suffers 1 hit for each of its remaining ranks, or that enemy suffers -1 movement until the end of the turn. Now these were when we played in LGT 2022. I came up against Larks using several units of these, and it was a bad day. But Free Folk Trappers, Mick, I know they lost a hit on their hidden trap order, but are they still commonplace in Free Folk?
Less so that they're commonplace. They've been in and out of popularity over the seasons. Season 4 was the last time we really saw them en masse in lists. The detracting factor for trappers at the moment is that the hits just isn't quite enough, and the bad morale is too easy for certain factions to kind of prey upon. That being said, they're not bad. They really aren't bad. The movement 6 is important. The range attack is it's not actually terrible. It's nice to work around some mechanics, but yeah, there's very little synergy for range attacks anyway in Free Folk, and ultimately you used to use it to proc certain types of morale checks and things like that deliberately, whereas nowadays you're not really achieving that in the same way, so you're not as bothered by it. Yeah, they're not bad. They're really not bad. They're just probably not where you want to put your points into. one of the detracting factors a lot of people see is the 6-up, 8-up defensively. As someone who can tell you, from season 3, season 4, during the escalade of and the height of Golden Company's Swordmasters, I had a unit of Free Folk Trappers tanking a unit of Golden Company Swordmasters all game in one of my games in the US. That was with the Walrus when he had resilience at 2 points. This 6-up, 8-up doesn't matter if you know you're going to take wounds. So you want to think about how can you limit the number of wounds you take from the fails rather than I'm going to pass. You know, we talked about t-shirt saves and hurraying when a raider saves a unit. A hit, sorry. Trust me, when a trapper saves a wound, I am bouncing off the ceiling. When a trapper passes a panic check, I am laughing in my opponent's face because my guys with bows who clearly absolutely afraid of everything aren't afraid of you get stuffed. Yeah. No, they're okay. They're okay. They're decent, but I probably wouldn't look to them as much as you used to. The key here is understanding where are you going to get the utility out of that 6 move and that range attack, and where are you going to get the utility out of hidden traps. That's what you're looking for to include them in a list, and that answer sometimes is very, going through that exercise will give you a good answer. It's very prescient to do that, but that will tell you if you want to include the unit or not.
So have you managed to sort of look at these guys and maybe look at some of the attachment points? Do any attachments really ramp them up a bit more for you, or?
Well, the irony of the Golden Company Swordman meta was it was a 7-point unit, infantry unit, and I said to everyone before going over to the US and general kind of speaking at the time, 7-point infantry units are not very efficient. They're not how you win events. I then proceeded to laugh in everyone's faces by taking trappers at 4 points with the Walrus Chieftain when he was 2 points with Resilience, Iron Resolve, and Harma's Bannerman, which, if you count the numbers there, that's a 4 plus a 2 plus a 1. And I may be a maths teacher, but I'm pretty sure everyone at home can work out that 4 plus 2 plus 1 is indeed 7. And so beating Golden Company Swordsmasters with a 7-point unit of trappers, which everyone looks at and say the stats are terrible, is quite funny. That being said, the attachments at the moment, probably still looking at the Walrus Clan Chieftain, the hardened may be beneficial, but actually you're looking at the Iron Resolve being quite useful. I don't think there's many other attachments I really want, to be honest. There's not a huge number of things I'm looking at thinking, oh yeah, that synergizes really well. It's just there are nice things in Free Folk, and some of those nice things might need a home. Is that home trappers for the utility that the trappers bring? I have that many options for attachments and units that I'm not that fussed trying to find something that synergizes with trappers, so much more trappers synergizing with those things.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, so next, that's it for our, well, it's not it for our 4-point units. That's the 2 basic 4-point units from the starter set. But next up we have Spearwives at 5 points. So these are much more of an aggressive unit for Free Folk. So they have movement of 6, so again, a really pacey unit. They have the Spear Toss short range attack ability, which is a 4+ to hit with a 4/4/4, so absolutely no depreciation on the numbers there. And they have the Spear melee attacker profile, so it's a 7/7/4, hitting on a 4+, 5+ arm save again, 7+ morale again. But they come with the order charge and volley. So after this unit completes a ranged attack, this unit performs 1 charge action on the defender. And they come with Furious Charge. So enemies successfully charged with this unit become vulnerable, which is linked to the Spear melee attack. It's obviously a melee ability. Spearwives, Mickey, I really, really like, again, I've not having played too much Free Folk myself, or played any Free Folk really myself. The Spearwives on paper look like a really nice, uber aggressive unit. I know there's some really nice combos that you can sort of do to ramp up a little bit more, but yeah, I mean, you was an advocate of the Spearwives a little while ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, you only have to go back to early 2021 when we saw them have the +1 hit for every rank they had, which was pretty uber good, not gonna lie, and that was arguably problematic. But now we see that replaced with the vulnerable, which is much more of a power level power level downgrade, but ultimately one that was needed. They were movement 5 for a long time, and unfortunately the movement 5 and the Furious Charge were nice, but like they weren't good enough to really push through, so they kind of fell out of favour with a lot of free folk players. Brian McGonigal from the UK, I'd have to say Scotland to be nice to him. But he was a big advocate of Spearwives, still is a big advocate. He loves the Spearwives in his lists. But they have fallen out of favour in general. That being said, like, I think they're back with a vengeance. I think one of the big things that let Spearwives down is they needed attachments to be effective nowadays. But there are some nice attachment vehicles. It's just it was whether or not you could afford them and the Spearwives in the same list at the same time, while also the Spearwives not necessarily being the main punch. And again, they're a very utility piece. And we have very good utility now in the attachments we can bring alongside this that just push it to the 11. So you'll see Spearwives re-entering lists, I think, and my favourite combo in the game, re-entering the game, which from 2021 was the Spearwife Matriarch, which, by the way, having the captain of the unit feels synergistic and nice to have in the unit. Feels very good for the game. I feel like that's a good thing. Yeah. You know, you want your Starksworn Sword champions in your Starksworn Swords. But we saw the Spearwife Matriarch in the Spearwives with Harma's Bannerman for that retreat heal. So you'd get hit, you then pop the order to retreat from the Spearwife Matriarch, heal from the Bannerman, and then you can combo with that charging volley back in. And that bouncing Spearwives, as we used to call them, is really just, it's one of my favorite things to do and one of my favorite combos to have in the game. They've actually gone up to 6 movement now, and that pushes you even further down the list of using things like Harma and all these really maneuverability-esque mechanics. I'm going to be playing more Spearwives in Season 6. I think they've got a place. I think it plays into this combined arms strategy that Season 6 is going to be pushing. And it's good, you know. I'm not a massive fan of the Spearwife models on the table. Some of them are a bit hit and miss. But that being said, some of them are really nice, and I like having them on the table. And I also like charging, volleying people because that's fun. And in the modern power level of the game, they sit at this. They're on the precipice of being, you know, and you'll see this a lot today with a lot of the 5-point units, where it's like this is usable, but it's not. And then this is actually where I think Free Folk are in this weird state at the moment, where it's, I think everything is quite usable, but it's down to you to decide how you want to use it in the list. Everything has utility, nothing has base stats. So it's not about picking good units and saying, that's just good. It's about this does this thing efficiently. How can you raise the efficiency and make that good? And that, to me, is actually what makes this building very fun, because it's about mixing and matching and building to make something that works, which I just don't think is true for some of the other factions in the game.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Let's get on to, so we can see a bit of an offensive unit. Let's look at a bit more of a defensive unit. Well, not really defensive anymore, but we'll get into them. 5-point Fen Warriors, 5-inch move. They have bronze weapon, so 754 attack profile, hitting on 4s again. A 4+ armor save, so a much better armor save for the free folk. 6+ morale. You have the order, hold the line. So when this unit activates, target one enemy engaged with this unit. It suffers 2 hits plus 1 hit for each of this unit's remaining ranks. And they come with the order taunt. So when an enemy in long range activates, if that enemy could attack or charge this unit and declares any action other than attack or charge that targets this unit this turn, before performing that action, that enemy becomes vulnerable and weakened. Now, obviously, just for the newer players that listen to this to find out about free folk, taunt obviously works on ranged as well, so they can taunt ranged units. But yeah, anyway, we talk about the miniatures, but I love the miniatures of Fen Warriors. I think they're some of the nicest free folk models. They just look solid, and I think that's probably why I think of them as a defensive unit, because they look really defensive. But yeah, Fen Warriors, Mickey, what are we saying?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to second you on the models. You know, you've seen mine and Ogron, one of the few units that I did like paint up quite early. I've got a converted one that I'm trying to do with like a Fen banner and stuff. I do really like the models. I think they're nice. They're just very thematic and they feel good to paint and use. On the board, Thens have been a staple since kind of like Mance dropping down in season 1 and the season 2 changes. Thens have been an absolute staple in that period of time, and rightly so. Rightly so. The hold the line ability is actually a surprisingly defensive ability because basically people don't want to charge you and be involved with your unit, knowing that when it activates, it gets to use hold the line, which does mean you use hold the line a lot less than you think. But actually, that can be really good because it just means your opponent doesn't want to engage you, and the best defense is just never being attacked, right? So, yeah, there's that, and I do like Thens just because of that. The taunt utility of taunt, now that that's changed, I remember, I used to taunt archers over stakes and make them charge my Thens, which was very funny back in the old taunt days, where if you failed the morale check, you had to charge. That was fun and games. But this modern taunt is actually, again, very effective because you can say, look, you're going to charge that unit of raiders. I know you're setting up to charge that raiders, but actually you now have to charge me. Otherwise, you take the tokens. So you can pull people away from their intended plans. Alternatively, which is really fun, you can put your Thens at like an 11-inch charge distance away from your opponent where they're like having to roll a 6. And then they activate and you go, cool, I'll taunt you. And they're like, yeah, but I've got an auto in charge against this raider unit. I'm like, yeah, but if you take the auto in, you'll get the tokens, which protects me. Or you can really try for that 6 if you want. Like, yeah. And it puts them in a decision where like there isn't really a good option for them. They're probably just gonna have to take the tokens. And that protects those weaker units where you can now actually use the weakened token to lower the amount of damage you've done. So it's quite defensive, but quite a nice proactive defense that also, as you say, Grant, works on the range attacks as well, which is quite uncommon for things to work against range attacks in Free Folk. So it's a really good way of being able to control where the damage is going, make them hit your Thens with your 4+, 6+, rather than your raiders in 5+, 7+, or their weakening range attacks, which is usually very, very strong. 2 or 3 wounds saved because of that. And every wound saved is a wound 1, and a wound 1 is good stuff. So yeah, I'm a really big fan of Thens. They've not been in my list pairing. Oh, sorry, not been in my list pairing for the best part of a year and a half now. I don't think I leave the house without a unit of Thens in my back pocket when I'm playing Free Folk. I probably don't leave the house without a model of Thens somewhere on my body, because you never know. But yeah, no, Thens are absolutely solid. They've been a good stable piece, and they just synergize so well with what Free Folk wants to do. The only thing is, I'll just add this now so everyone's aware, and everyone at home, just be very wary of this. This unit has a 4-up armor and a 6-up morale. That means that they have a 50% chance of saving any generic hit, and a above 50% chance of saving morale checks. What we've done as Free Folk players is we've started to move into the realms of things you might start to rely on. So when these guys fail all their saves, you get really angry. When they also fail their morale check, you get really angry, right? Because you're like, oh my god, I paid extra points for these guys to be better defensively and they're not better defensively. And so you get those feel bad moments that all those men in tin down in the south are used to. Like, just be very careful with your Thens. They're quite prized possessions. They're quite nice. Don't get too angry at them when they fail these saves. They are just more experienced, slightly more armored men with sticks. But yeah, like, I love them. I actually love Thens. I've loved the different iterations of them over the time. I love using them. They're fun. The models are great. Like, I can't say anything more about Thens because it's just going to be me fawning over about the fact that I like them.
Awesome. In times past, they're quite reliably been commander bunkers. Do they still serve that purpose?
Yeah, definitely. Depending on the commander you're running, which I do think there's obviously going to be new commander options, and there's definitely commanders you want to be looking elsewhere for. But yeah, commander bunker has been a really strong mechanic here. The reason being actually is we have quite a few commanders and options that have ways of propelling them into combat, which allows you to hold the line on activation more often. But also, Styr in these guys just makes them a nightmare to kill. It's a 6-point unit with a 5-up morale, basically, with the -1 armor, -1 wound, sorry. like a lot of other people would look at that and say, oh, but that's just like a 5-point unit. But in Free Folk, you look at that and say, actually, that's quite a nice defensive unit. I've got reliability. I can funnel healing into it. So yeah, like Thens have always been a fairly strong kind of pickup for commander bunkers. If you want a frontline commander who's going to be able to do damage and threaten, while also someone who, you know, has a presence on the board, doesn't mind being hit back. You know, I wouldn't put certain commanders in there. I wouldn't probably look for this for Harma as much. I'd look Harma elsewhere, but yeah, for a lot of things, this Thens are a great pick.
Yeah, and again, we mentioned it earlier, but putting Styr into Then Warriors when Styr is the Magnum of Then, again, that synergy with his own units is great.
It again, really feels thematic. It feels nice. And you can't complain, right? You can't complain if the best option for your commander. It's like you know, one of my favorite things in the game is Ed's Honor Guard. And I like the fact that Ed's Honor Guard are good and efficient at 6 points. It's like, why would you never pick Ed's Honor Guard? But it's like, isn't that the point? Like if you're running Ed Commander, it should feel like you should run his Honor Guard. Like that feels like the thing you should do. Yeah. I'm fine with them being a very effective, if not slightly OP 6-point unit.
Yeah.
If the point is that you will always run it with that commander, because that's the point. It's his guys. A little bit like, you know, Kingsguard with Joffrey and the Rainbow Guard with Renly 3. You know, if these weren't the best options for these commanders, it would feel very wrong. And as a result, you know, Then Warriors with Styr just again feels very thematic, very correct, and I can't complain at all.
Awesome. Well, let's get on to probably one of your more offensive infantry units, the Followers of Bone. So these guys are obviously another commander's, well, they're not actually his retinue, but they're a part of his tribe or clan, whatever you guys call your mates.
Just mates, mate.
Just mates, mate. Cheers, mate. So a 5-point unit, Followers of Bone, a 5-inch move. They have jagged weapons, which is a 7/6/4 attack profile, again hitting on 4s, a 5+ armor save, a 6+ morale, quite common in Free Folk. With the jagged weapons come with Vicious, and they come with the defensive ability Horrific Visage. Each time an enemy performs a melee attack on this unit, before resolving that attack, target the attacker. They suffer 1 panic test with -1 to their roll for each remaining rank in this unit. So these guys got a little bit of defense built in, quite a bit of aggression built into them, but Followers of Bone. How we feel about these guys?
So historically, I actually ran a unit of these in season 2021, pre-season 1. I quite liked them, what they offered me in the list, and you know, this is your access to Vicious if you don't want to look at some of the beasts. So yeah, this is quite powerful, or at least it was. It just dropped off in viability over time. We saw more ranged come into the game. More ways of countering this effectively. The Horrific Visage without the doubling down of Intim just isn't that powerful or impressive, because it's just potentially 1 wound, which, like, who cares? Like, if that's all I'm taking, I'll just take the hit, fine. So yeah, like the Horrific Visage just didn't do enough. And against ranged units, you know, it's very easy to weaken this unit. We actually saw their morale over time, you know, bust from 7 to 6. So I did get an improvement there. And we also saw them get an additional dice at the 2nd rank, go from 5 to 6 on that middle rank. Like, these are small changes that you don't think have a massive impact. The morale change actually does make a difference. Just makes them a little bit more tanky, a little less likely to take two ranks on one attack from a ranged attack. But also, you know, that 2nd rank just gives them a bit more sustain in the combats. So yeah, like the Followers of Bone are in this kind of weird position where they're just fine. Again, they're the utility piece. They're not like, I'm going to be running lots of Followers of Bone probably, but you might pick up a unit of this for a specific role. And again, it comes back to that utility. You don't look at this unit and go, that's good. I don't look at this compared to Thens and think, oh my god, Followers of Bone are amazing. I look at Thens and think, oh, they're amazing. Followers of Bone are like, fine. Where's the utility coming from? How do I make them fit the list I want to build? In that case, you can turn that you know, bunch of guys with sticks who are a bit scary in this case, they can be taken from that kind of like mediocre efficient unit to actually being that really nice tech efficiency that you want in a list. I've done it before. As I say, back in 2021, I used this as my Harma vessel for Harma attachment in some of the lists I ran, and really, really enjoyed what that offered me. And you might find that again in Season 6, where this is kind of re-entering lists as these tech pieces. I like Follows a Bone. It's nice models as well. It's just trying to find the right space for them. And there is a space for them, but you've got to find it.
Yeah, mate, they're really nice miniatures. I really love the Follows a Bone. Like, when the few times I've dabbled about the idea of buying into Free Folk, it's just the Follows a Bone always pull me in quite a lot, because I really like the idea, or just the image of the whole skeleton and all that. Do you think are they sort of cheapened a little bit by, obviously we're going to get into it in a minute, when we get around to the next Follows a Bone version, are they cheapened by the fact that the Bonelord's chosen are a lot better?
Yeah, the Bonelord's chosen, unfortunately, for 1 point, are quite a lot better. Even though it's not actually that many changes, but we'll go through that in the detail in a minute. The biggest killer of Follows a Bone really pushing to 11, and this sounds really ironic, is that there isn't really an attachment in them that you think, oh, that's good. There's just a lot of attachments go in them and think, oh, it's fine. But like, you probably get that same reaction, if not better reaction, from other things. And the one thing that I'd love to include in there with the Weeper, the Weeper, of course, brings Vicious anyway, so you're just doubling down on the cost of Vicious, and that just doesn't feel nice. I'm not saying it's a bad decision; it might actually even be the right decision, but it feels bad that you've ended up having the same keyword twice, so you're losing some of the value from Weeper by putting him in the Follows a Bone. So yeah, there's things like that which unfortunately kind of like, it just overlaps a little bit. For a long time this was a source of Vicious, but then they changed Battle Scars, and now Great Walrus is giving you Vicious potentially. So again, the synergy with Follows a Bone just isn't really there. I might consider Walrus Clan Chieftain with them, to be honest. The Hardened might be quite nice with the Iron Resolve, but again, it's pushing you into this idea that you want to just be an engaged, grindy thing. And as we see with the Bonelord's Chosen in a minute, that for 1 more point is it's a pretty good grind machine.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, let's get cracking on then. So next up we have Cave Dweller Savages. Now, I was so pleased to see you running a unit of these whales, because when we talk about miniatures, I'll find myself saying more and more in this conversation with you, the miniatures for Free Folk are so good. I love the Cave Dweller Savages. They look so aggressive. It's such a good looking unit.
Yeah, I mean, I can't just on the miniatures alone, like, this is another unit where you see the face paint on the images here up on screen, and like, people, when they paint up their cave dwellers, they try to emulate the face paint and stuff like that, and that in and of itself is an element of a skill that you learn when painting. So the image really helps, but the models are nice and they feel like you can do it. I have some of mine have got like tattoos on them, like your Celtic tattoos and stuff, which again, for me as a painter, was practicing that fine line brushwork. Like that's amazing. And from a hobby aspect, that's brilliant. That as I'm not going to say I'm inexperienced, but just simply not very good, who's not a great painter, but feel like I can express that still and learn and use these models to do that and not feel bad about it, I think that's a really good thing. Away from the game itself, but just from the hobby aspect, you know.
Yeah, totally. And in this, it's nice that, because like you say about tattoos, but that is exactly where I would go if I was painting a unit Cave Dweller Savages. And it's nice that just the model itself inspires you. Do you know what I mean? If you, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put tattoos, because they're the sort of, like, drugged up crazy guys that are just tattoo themselves and just eat mushrooms and run at people. It's just really inspiring. But let's see if that transfers over to the rules then. So a 5-point unit again, a 6-inch move, so again another speedy unit. They have a reverse attack profile, so obviously as these guys lose ranks, they get better, which we'll see again in a minute. They have a 6, 7, 8 attack profile, hitting on 4. So at the last rank, we've got only 4 models left, 8 dice. Then they have a 6+ armor save, because as we've just said, all they're wearing is face paint and tattoos and a little bit of fur. They have a 4+ morale, which is really good for Free Folk. And they come with the attack profile Frenzied Swing. So this has got Sundering built in, so nice can opener unit. And they have gains +1 to hit for each of this unit's destroyed ranks. So just to explain that to the newer players that are listening. So on the last rank, they're rolling 8 dice, hitting on 2s, which makes them really quite good on that last rank. Obviously, it's that knife edge. But yeah, Cave of the Savages, Mickey, are they as good as they look?
Yeah. No more needs to be said, right? You don't care about that 6+ armor. Who cares? Like, it is what it is. If you're not used to it in Free Folk, that number being better than a 4 is rare. Better than a 5 is pretty uncommon. So you don't give a about that 6+ really. That 4+ morale though, it's quite nice. I don't see that very often. So yeah, these guys hit like a truck as well. When these are the, as you put it before, these are the drugged up guys on mushrooms, so you just run at people. Yeah, they're nice to use. They've always been in and out. Way back when I first started in 1.6, it was a German player back in the day who he ran Cave Dwellers to win, I think it was Masters of Westeros, which was the first really big event ever held ever for the game. And Cave Dwellers got nerfed, and then they went out of fashion for a long time. Made a bit of a comeback in bits and bobs over the time. But yeah, that was a very interesting journey for Cave Dweller Savages. They're now in a position where, Season 5, there was still quite a lot of play, specifically in combination with Battle Scars, so the Great Walrus 1-point attachment. Very nice synergy there, natural synergy. He wants low ranks, these guys want low ranks. Match made in heaven. These are perfectly serviceable, decent. The 6+ move is lovely. They hit like a truck. Plus, you don't get many keywords in Free Folk, as you'll see, but some of them are accessible through some of the cards that we have. But this is your access to Sundering on base. So this is your Sundering unit. And when we talk about, you'll probably notice when I'm talking about this, I've got a Vicious unit. I have a Sundering unit. I have this utility. That's what you're looking to build with in Free Folk a lot more than any other faction, is these individual components that have these abilities. Because we can share those abilities around, we can share that utility. So build the utility, and that will make the list work.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what I love these conversations with people like yourself that play, know the game way better than I ever will. That it's this knowing how to build your list, and I've said it in multiple of these recordings now that the list building aspect of the game is a whole game in itself. The list building side of it, and I could spend hours writing lists and working out what it's working on that, and then you play the game, and it's just great, and it's great to listen to people like you talk about. Sort of the way that lists are built and the way units play their part in that list. But yeah, cool. Thanks. Okay, cool. So yeah, Cave of the Savages then. Nice. That's a good glowing review for them. So let's get into Frozen Shore Hunters. So these guys are a bit of a range unit. So another 5-point unit for Free Folk. A 5-inch move. Have the short ranged harpoon, which is a 6/6/4 attack profile, hitting on a 4+. They have the melee harpoon, which hits on a 4+ as a 6/6/4 as well. So equally as good at range as they are in combat. With 5+ armor save and a 7+ morale. They have the order marked target, so start with a friendly turn, target one enemy in line of sight and long range, they become vulnerable. Then they have the harpoon rule, which applies to both attack profiles, hence they're both being named the same. After completing this attack, the defender becomes weakened. So just after completing the attack, you haven't got to do any wounds or roll any dice. Well, you've got to roll dice, but you haven't got to make them fail anything to get. They just become weakened. And if the defender suffers any wounds in this attack, until the end of the round, they suffer -1 movement. And if they charge, they suffer a disorderly charge. So these guys have obviously fallen a long way from the bolt thrower ranged long harpoons they had on release. Have you managed to find any way of sort of getting any utility out of these guys, or?
These unfortunately, I do have a unit, but I've used it like once or twice, maybe like in some casual games at the club, but like they just haven't ever really offered something in prior to Season 5 that I really felt like I could utilize and push forward with. It's not to say that they don't bring utility. It's not actually what the problem here is. It's just that like they don't bring the utility that you need to make a list function over the other utility pieces that you are already looking at. And if you consider that we've already talked about Fens, We've already talked about Cave Dweller Savages. We've already talked about Spearwives, which are all nice utility things you want in your list. This would be the fourth utility piece that offers some kind of different thing. And the problem we've got here is now all we've done is build utility, and we've never actually built any efficiency to utilize it or any real list archetype to use it. We end up with 4 different 5-point units. You spent 20 of your 4 points. You're probably playing 3 NCUs. There's 12 points gone. You only have 8 points left. And all you have at the moment is a very bog standard 7 activation list. Nothing spectacular, nothing amazing. Prior to Season 5, the Frozen Shore Hunters were always they just never made the cut because they weren't in the top half of your 5-point units you wanted to pick from. That being said, so, little thing to mention about these guys is I'm 90% sure that these are actually a lot more playable now with the attachment changes.
Okay.
The Harpoon, which is an automatic weaken token, is not bad. I tell you what is really nice, and that is that -1 movement and automatic disorderly charge on certain things in the game. This is very useful right now because a lot of people are wanting to play like on charge effects, and lots of people have like immunity to weakened. Maybe they have auto charges, that kind of thing. But like just being able to destroy certain elements of people's attacks, no card play on some of those attacks, is really good. Because, okay, disorderly charges stop you playing any cards for the turn. Not for the charge, for the turn. So if you've got things with Sentinel, such as Harma, guess what? You get to go, well, now I can charge you with Harma, and you don't get to play any of your defensive cards, because the attack is happening on your turn when you rolled a disorderly charge. And there's little things like that that just make me think, maybe these guys might make some lists. I'm also more tempted because of the attachment points to get the utility and some of the efficiency from some of those attachments, which means this no longer being in the top half of those 5-point units maybe isn't so much of an issue anymore. Because maybe, just like I said at the start of today, I'm no longer thinking about the 5-point bucket, but the 4-point. No longer thinking about the 4-point bucket, but the 5-point bucket. And I don't want another unit of Thens. I don't want another unit of Follows a Bone. So maybe this makes the cut instead. I am not calling these out as unplayable. I am not calling them out as being, bad, even. They've been on the bottom end of the pile in the 5-point list category. I don't think that's changed much. But maybe list building's just opened enough where these guys will see some more play.
That's awesome, man. That's really, really inspiring to sort of listen to you talk about that you've not given up on units. Do you know what I mean? That always every single shift in season in patch to keep an eye out for what may have opened up for some of these other units that we maybe perhaps wouldn't have seen quite as much. So that's nice. That's that's filthy.
Yeah, I mean, just hold on to what you've just said there a second, though, because we'll come across something soon, Grant, where, I don't know, a nuclear bomb might be needed to save these.
I like horses. I mean, that's yeah. Cool. Okay, sweet. Well, let's get on to, from one Frozen Shore to next Frozen Shore unit, Frozen Shore Chariots. Now, these were obviously rife a while back. When they were 4 points.
Can I say, before we even read the rules, when you say they were rife, they were broken, Grant. They were broken as hell.
Yeah, it was, but I mean, it's nice. At least everyone got to use their models for a brief moment in time.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, so they're a 5-point unit. 6-inch move. They've got deadly impact, so 4 dice hitting a 4+. And these obviously came on just to clarify for people why they haven't got an attack profile with more numbers. They've got the chariot base, obviously being a chariot, so it's a longer monster base, so they can't lose ranks. They have a 5+ armor save, 5+ morale. They have the order, swift retreat. After enemy completes a melee attack on this unit performs 1 retreat action. It's got a chariot rule, which is innate, so can't be taken away. So this unit has 6 wounds. At the start of this unit's activation, it may perform 1 maneuver action in much the same way as cavalry. And the deadly impact attack has, when charging, it gains sundering, vicious, and deals +1 hit for each of the defenders' remaining ranks. Yes, they were broken. How are they at 5 points, Mickey?
Yeah, so at 4 points they were silly. There was a guy who ran Tormund in like fens or cave dwellers, or it might have been raiders, but just doesn't care about the adaptive at all, and ran like 5 frozen or 6 frozen sword chariots. And that was a genuine list. He like won events in I think Spain or Italy, if I remember rightly. So yeah, they were pretty bonkers. At 5 points, I still think they're playable. I still think they have a spot, and I was actually using them in season 4. They didn't really make the cut in season 5 for me too much. They just lacked a little bit of gusto, and again, it wasn't really what I wanted from the lists, what I was building. That being said, I think they're fine. What they are is that they are a utility piece and an opener, but they can't be just out alone opening something up in, on the other side of the board. They need the support to work, but they will open up because they can say, right, well, now is the time I want to charge in. I want to do the damage, and this is where I'm going to pin a unit. And this is a unit that really benefits from being one of the last things to happen in a round, where you can utilize this to really make a big punching attack before following up with an uppercut from an infantry unit making a second charge. Those horde styles that like those mass activations, being able to do this 1-2 punch effectively, is what the Frozen Shore Chariot wants. That being said, they die a little bit too easily to the game at the moment. The prevalence of things like Tywin makes these guys a little bit questionable because they can just explode to Tywin. They really struggle if they ever get hit by ranged attacks because of that low armor as well. Yeah, they are not bad. They have been a sufferer of the meta more so than being a problem and bad themselves. I expect them to have a bit more of a resurgence in Season 6 because they're better when the enemy's running more infantry, and we expect to see a little bit more infantry with the attachment changes. That being said, you're probably only ever really running one of these, maybe 2 if you really push it, but probably only 1. And it's fine. Like, it is good. The Sundering Vicious on the charge is good. It is a bit of a can opener in that sense. But yeah, just be wary of how you use it.
Do they synergize with any commander better than the other? Obviously, they've got obvious synergies with. Well, I don't know if these are obvious synergies, but they benefit from the Great Walrus's cards.
Not hugely. They synergize okay with the Great Walrus, but you really don't want to be putting battle endurance on them, really, because they want to be charging a lot. The defensive Great Walrus card now has obviously changed. And that was where they actually wanted that card the most. Frozen Shore Resilience is probably fine still for them, with the rerolls on both the defense and panic on them. But yeah, like, the Walrus Strength is probably better on them actually now that I think about it. Healing the wound and removing the token is actually pretty big for them. That is actually pretty good, and that might make me think twice about these a little bit. But I'm probably not running Walrus Commander unit lists, so unfortunately, probably just not really there. That being said, they're not bad. As I say, they're not bad at all. They're just not where you want, or not where the game has wanted the game to be with the Chariots and some of the other stuff which we'll see later on, which unfortunately just really hard to shine the spotlight off some of the other performers in Free Folk.
Okay then, right. So we'll talk about previously OP units. We'll talk about OP units now. So on screen now we've got Harma's Vanguard. The only unit of horse cavalry I think that Free Folk have outside of obviously bears, which aren't horses. So I was still right in what I said. 5-point unit, quite recently released. So a 5-inch movement, crude weapons on a 6/4 attack profile, hitting on 4s, a 6+ defense save, and a 7+ morale. They have the order, planned approach. So start of any turn, target one friendly unit in long range. Until the end of the turn, that unit may not be targeted by enemy effects or abilities. And they come with the cavalry rule. We are going to see this again, but I will read it again because it's slightly different. But so each model in this unit has 3 wounds. At the start of this unit's activation, it may perform 1 maneuver action. Harma's Vanguard, Mickey. I've played many players that have trying to make these work. They're struggling. What are they about?
I mean, you pretty much nailed it on the head there, haven't you? People have tried to make them work and they struggle. There's a key element missing here, which is never been addressed in an FAQ, and it's never really like been something. But like they are a 5-point cavalry unit, which in theory should be fine. But we just saw what basically was a 5-point cavalry unit that admittedly only has 6 wounds. But it had a 5-up armor, not a 6-up armor. It had a 5-up morale, not a 7-up morale. And it does more damage on the charge because those 4 dice with the plus hits with the Sundering and the Vicious is better than the 6 dice on 4s or the 4 dice on 4s. So the Chariot just has better damage output. The only saving grace... Harma's Vanguard, by the way, are also a movement point slower because that's how those things work. Yeah, Harma's Vanguard, the planned approach ability looks interesting when you first see it. It just isn't. to be blunt. There's a lot to it that you can do, and there's a lot to it that you can utilize it for. It just doesn't protect you against things like Tywin because it's the same trigger as Tywin, therefore Tywin resolves first because it uses it on their turn. Or it does resolve first, but you have to guess where Tywin's going to go before Tywin is actually spent, and also they just wait a turn. Anyway, like there's a whole thing about this. It just doesn't work against some of those effects, which is fine. But then also, it's like, I know what my opponent's going to do, so I'll use planned approach to cancel the effects of what they're going to do. One of the things your opponent's probably going to be doing is charging you and trying to kill you. None of that requires targeting. And none of what you've just done makes you any more defensive. So you're probably just going to go and get killed. And as a result, it just means that the whole package just doesn't really offer you anything. It also, bearing in mind, has very little to no synergy in Free Folk because it's not infantry. So you can't use a lot of your cards to heal and keep it going, and there's a whole like litany of problems there. Unfortunately, it's just a not very good cavalry unit that has this kind of weird, unique ability that people look at and think, oh, that's interesting. But then when you learn the targeting rules, this just becomes a discussion / argument / problem on the table that just never does what you want it to do. And at that point, just pay 4 points for Raiders because you get +1 armor.
Yeah, it's a really strange unit, and I'd love to see them do more. Because again, we get into the miniatures. The miniatures are really nice for them.
Yeah.
I mean, even the being movement 5, I don't understand. I'd love to see them be a movement 6 because it's got a 6+ armor save. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of get it. Because you have your grit NCU, which is the +1 move, and you'd move them from movement 6 to movement 7, that could be egregious. So they downplay it by making them movement 5 to protect against that. But like that same argument, Chariots are movement 6, I can make them Chariot movement 7 with a grit. So like, it's not. The argument doesn't seem to be valid. And yeah, I'm not. It's a shame. I'd love Harma's Vanguard to be a bit better and to be a bit more of a, again, utility piece, but the lack of synergy inside Free Folk as a barrier immediately, and then not being that impressive for the points you're paying for them, it just entirely makes, unfortunately, something that in Free Folk just is pretty damn unpalatable.
One last thing while we're here. I've seen multiple conversations about it. I don't think it's ever been addressed officially, but do Harma's Vanguard, do they benefit from the extra kickers on Harma's cards?
Nope. And that, again, it just further pushes them into the kind of like, everything is here. Everything is here to make this unit playable, interesting, and fun to try and find how it works. And every time you ask me a question about how these work, or how we dive into the detailing around how an ability works, or what functionality and what synergies exist, every time you enter that discussion, the answer is always the bad answer for Harma's Vanguard.
Okay, cool. Right, well, let's get swiftly away from these then, which is faster than Harma's Cavalry will move. So next up, we've got the Savage Giant. Now, Savage Giant, again, I'll read the stats and we'll get into the other bits and pieces. So, 7 points. They have a 5-inch move. They have the Furious Swing attack ability, which is 3 dice hitting on 4s. They have 4+ armor save, a 5+ morale. They have the Giant rule. So this unit has 6 wounds. They only suffer 1 wound for every 2 unblocked hits from any attack or effect. And this unit can only suffer a maximum of 2 wounds from failing panic tests. Then they have the Furious Swing ability, which is innate and melee, so it cannot be taken away, because, a giant swing the tree is a giant swing in the tree. He's not going to forget how to hit you with it, and it's still vicious. So it comes with Vicious, gains +1 attack die for each wound that the unit has suffered. And the defenders didn't roll defense dice. Enemies successfully charged when they should become panicked. Now, when these were released, the miniatures, again, I'm going to come back to miniatures, were awesome. And they just look great. I loved the aesthetic of the Song of Ice and Fire Giant. On paper, the original Giant looked really good for a new player perspective. But then when it sort of got into the tabletop, they weren't quite as good as you want a Giant to be. They've recently had, or recently, if that's a word, have had a bit of a change to the way they work. So how are you feeling about this new version of Savage Giants?
I would say, I've run a lot of Giants over the years in various different iterations. And they've always been this kind of like flirting with the idea of being playable. And it was usually down to what your opponents were running as to how effective the Savage Giants were. And they were never truly awful. They just had mechanics they just didn't feel good to sometimes play. 1 dice on a 2+. I don't like mechanics like that. It's like, oh, there's a 1 in 6 chance I do literally nothing. And then, you take a bunch of wounds on a giant. Back in the day, you did an extra wound for every wound you had. And then he gave him an extra wound +2. So you would literally be like, right, I've had taken 5 wounds on my giant because you didn't kill me. And now I roll 1 dice. And if I roll a 2 up, you're going to take 5 wounds +2 plus a D3. And then take a panic check. Being able to turn around and roll a 3, and you could be like, lol, you just took 10 wounds from a giant swing before the panic. That doesn't feel good for the opponent either. And so yeah, it was just one of those mechanics that I just didn't like very much. Even though I did think it was hilarious and it was funny watching someone nearly kill a giant and then have the giant turn around and thunk, your unit is dead. That being said, these are playable now. This is a lot more of a palatable mechanic. It makes weakened tokens useful, but not all or nothing. It allows them to play with, it's not auto wounds, so it plays around some of the defensive abilities like Shield Wall, like we saw with Mag, but also it is still a can opener. You can't just put a 3+ armor unit in front of a giant and go, haha, because guess what? Smush, I ignore your armor. I like the giants as they are. They're also synergistic with themselves. The vicious that they innately have with the panic token on charge. That just makes sense. Yeah. It's 2 things that they do on their own that have a natural synergy. That is what you want when you are buying a unit for a higher price point than what you're used to in Free Folk at 7 points. And that's what every 7-point unit in the game, elsewhere in the game, should want. It should be bringing abilities that work with the unit itself. If it's got more than one. So yeah, like giants are now very playable, very accessible, very, they're fine. They lack the biggest weakness, not having the cavalry maneuver, and being the small base means that they're quite easy to outmaneuver, and they can have a bit of a struggle in that sense. But I would say that if you're running a giant list with Mag the Mighty, you'll probably want one savage giant in there. Good times. And I even think some of these savage giants have a place in some of the non-mag lists as well. I mean,
that's awesome, mate. That's really good to hear that you think there's a place for them now, because that's really nice to see. Again, these are the models you want to see in the tabletop. There's another couple of really big miniatures that we're going to talk about in a moment, but you want to see giants on the tabletop. You want to see dragons on the tabletop. You want to see these really cool things. That's what Song of Ice and Fire is about. That's what the fluff's about. And again, talking about the fluff, becoming panicked and the giant having vicious. Mate, if a giant runs at me, I'm going to be worried.
Hey, you're a pretty big guy. You're a pretty good guy. I reckon you could take a giant.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably outrun it. Yeah.
No, you know what? You mentioned the models earlier, actually, by the way. One of the things I really like about the giant, the free folk giants here, is they've got the fantasy vibe. They clearly are. The one with the mane of hair has definitely got a bit of a fantasy vibe. But what I like about them is they just look like big humans.
Yeah.
They aren't. There's nothing crazy been done about them. They've got the pot bellies, the little bit longer limbs, but the proportions feel like what a giant's proportion should be. And I know we've seen Games Workshop giants and other giants from other areas in the past, and they just look wrong. They just don't look right. They just look like giants. Like, what it is. You can clearly tell it's a human, but it's a big human. It's a giant. Yeah, they just thematically look nice and right and fit what I would want a giant to be, rather than these kind of weird, grotesque, almost troll-like beings you see with other giants.
Yeah, I totally agree, mate. I totally agree. And they're not ridiculously tall as well. It's very much. They're very obviously the Song of Ice and Fire is taken from the Song of Ice and Fire books rather than TV show, but it's very much a TV show vibe about the giants. They look like they did in the TV show, which is nice. With Wun Wun sitting by the fireside, and you can see that he's just a much bigger man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a bloke who's 10, 11 foot tall and quite strong.
Yeah,
because he's got legs the size of tree trunks and arms the size of tree trunks. That's what a giant should be, not this weird gangly weird monster thing that I don't know.
Set of 10 goblins to his head. Yeah. Nice. All right, cool. Well, let's carry on. Let's get cracking on with the giant train. So next up we have Wun Wun. So this is our first character giant that we see from Free Folk Heroes 2. He has got he's an 8-point unit, so a bit more pricey now. We're getting into the echelons of big money. So he's got a 5-inch move. He has pummeling fists, so he has 6 dice hitting on 3s, a 3+ armor save. The first time we see the 3+ armor save in Free Folk as well, and a 4+ morale, so really decent defensive profile. It comes with the order war cry. So start with friendly turn. This unit performs 1 morale test. On a success, target 1 enemy in long range. It becomes panicked or vulnerable. And the pummeling fist attack profile, again innate, so cannot be taken away from him. He comes with critical blow and sundering, just as standard. And the giant rule, which we've already seen, I won't reread. Wun Wun. He's I'm so glad they actually got the giant characters in from the book. So, but in the game, how are they playing?
Yeah, so unfortunately, Wun Wun is probably the one of the giant characters which is ironically a bit less palatable now than just your basic giants. We just saw the basic giant, and we saw that the basic giants ignore armor saves. That's not true for Wun Wun. That's not to say that he's worse because of that, but it's just like your actual average damage output with a basic giant, especially after it takes a few wounds, is actually probably better than Wun Wun's. And he doesn't come with vicious, and he doesn't come with the panic token. There's actually quite a lot there that he's losing. What he does bring, though, is defensively much better. 3+ armor save is great. 4+ morale, great. You know, you are not taking a lot of damage, especially with the giant resilient rule. The big weakness that Wun Wun has is not Wun Wun. The weakness to Wun Wun is that if your opponent has a counter to giants through either precision or automatic wounds, the likes of Gregor, they are just as effective against Wun Wun as they are a normal giant. So all of that defensive ability that you have on Wun Wun just goes to waste because it's still weak to the same things that are good against giants. And that makes Wun Wun, again, it's not that Wun Wun is bad, but it's like I'm just paying more points for something in my list that has exactly the same weaknesses. And ironically, I'm paying points to buff up the stats where it doesn't matter if my opponent runs the counter. So it's like investing points into being better at something you're already very good at, which there's not really a point to. Also, it's only a small thing, but like Wun Wun's Warcry, which you could argue is like the panic token, he doesn't come with vicious. His panic or vulnerable token, he's the only giant that wants the vulnerable token, while simultaneously the only one that doesn't provide his own tokens like through panic. So you want the vulnerable token from Wun Wun to benefit his own attacks, but you also want the panic tokens because you need panic tokens without vicious. And like, I'm sorry, but if we, and I'm not trying to be, you know, any form of like humanist, sexist, whatever you want to call it, but is a bunch of she-bears war crying or a champion of the faith war crying really as scary as a bloody giant bellowing in your face? You know, why has Wun Wun not got Wun's cry or something like that, which just gives the old war cry, give both tokens? Why doesn't he have that? I would be absolutely quivering in my boots if this guy shouted at me.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think just he should have vicious anyway, because a giant attacking is going to be vicious. They're not tentatively sword playing with you and dueling with you either. They're just literally just and stuff.
I mean, you've seen my Wun Wun as well. Lore-wise, Wun Wun gets into an argument with a knight, basically, at Castle Black. And if you've not read the books, here's a spoiler. He rips the guy's arm off, just in the middle of this discussion. He rips the guy's arm off and then smushes his head against a brick wall. This guy has no chill, okay? Wun Wun has no chill. He is really quite vicious when he wants to be. So yeah. I mean, if he got vicious and like the Warcry change, he would be amazing. But for 8 points, I feel like that's what you'd want. The Warcry change would be nice for him to see play without the vicious. Vicious instead of the Warcry change would be really nice. But he's not bad. Like, he really isn't bad. He's very playable. He just loses out when we talk about the efficiency at the very high level list. I have still run 1-1. People should still run 1-1. I will put him back on the table again. Partially because I, changed his model up and did the things I did with his base. But like, yeah, I'm not saying he's bad or terrible or anything like that. It's like you've gone to the dartboard and you've gone for the triple 20 and you've hit the triple 19 and you're like, oh my God, this is just awkward. So yeah, it's just stuff like that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. I've had discussions with a few people recently around the Warcry thing. I wonder. I know it's slightly different the way they work, but ambush going to 3 tokens now. It just seems to be left Warcry really wanting. I wonder if maybe there's space to bring that back to the 2 tokens again if ambush is chucking out. I know there's obviously you have to get in the flank or rear for it, but on a lot of cavalry stuff, it's pretty easy to doing it.
I think the big change to Warcry was he was just freely setting up a lot of tokens. Basically, when people were using it, it was so automatically being reused that you ended up setting up a lot of tokens. I think you could easily make it 2 tokens if the opponent's engaged with a friendly unit. which includes itself. So you know it pushes the idea of Warcrying, pushing the melee side stuff, and it prevents the Warcry just being useful to set up ranged attacks or even alpha strikes.
Okay, nice. Next up, we have the giant spear throwers. So these guys are 7 points. These guys and girls, because there's a female one as well. A 5-inch move, a long range giant spear, which is 3 dice hitting on 3s. A short range, or sorry, a melee range, sorry, giant spear, 3 dice hitting on 3, so exactly the same again. 4+ armor save, 5+ morale. They have the giant rule, again, exactly the same as before. Then they have the giant spear, which is an innate ability, which affects both ranged and melee. But there is a slight difference, but we'll get to that as we go through. Again, they come with vicious. So range, vicious, combat, vicious. They have sundering. If the defender is cavalry, monster, or war machine, this attack deals 2 hits for each success. Then on the ranged attack, defenders do not roll defense dice. You may also suffer -3 to hit, to ignore line of sight, and gain unlimited range. Now, at the time of this going out, this is the first time we've seen this. It obviously appears again with Night's Watch with their bolt throwers, but at present, this is released before that has gone live. I've seen these used to really, really good effect, but I don't know how much of it is people just being good at rolling dice. Because when you're throwing 3 dice at a direwolf the other side of the battlefield, and you roll 3 6s and you kill a direwolf, I don't know how much of that is indication of the power of the unit. But giant spear throwers, how are you finding them, Mickey?
So they're pretty good. Yeah, they're pretty good. There are going to be 2 schools of thoughts here, and Grant will stop me if I get too negative about this. But I'll go through the positives first of all. They are a good unit. You know, they're a very, if it isn't blatantly obvious, they're a very good counter to cavalry, monsters, and war machines. You know, the strength over these, over something like the Scorpion, is that they have that movement 5 and they get to shift before shooting. So this is a much more maneuverable platform to massive area denial from cavalry and just being very effective at dealing damage. They're less effective against infantry, but they're not terrible. They can trade okay, but they're not gonna kill infantry units very, very quickly. In melee, that drops off a little bit more. They don't get the defenders no rolling defense dice, and they kind of drop off a little bit in melee as well, even further. These are decent. They're very, very playable pieces. They're very like they're good. I would even go as far as saying they're good. The negative parts for me start not around how good the unit is, but actually through the design space. I hate these things. I hate that you can just, as you say, go YOLO. I'm going to roll some dice across the board and hopefully roll some 6s. I hate that they ignore line of sight, because it means that not line of sight limits, but line of sight in general. So you can 360 no-scope this. So if you're just behind this unit, it just goes, cool, I ignore the mechanics of the game. I'm just going to throw the spear behind me. I actually think straight away, like, that's just not how we should understand how that ability works, personally. But that is a small number of people who think that. And I don't think that's even the right interpretation. I just think it's a better interpretation. I hate it. I hate the idea that they can just throw these spears wherever they want and play a casino of rolling 6s. I'm not saying that the power level's bad. It isn't bad. I think these are pretty good. I would argue that you probably, if you're running mag, you probably have 1 or even 2 of these in the list. I just can't abide the mechanics with which they function. It isn't for me. I don't like it. But that's a personal opinion, and I want to make that abundantly clear. It's a personal opinion.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fine, because you're here to talk about the free folk,
Yeah.
and we totally respect that your opinion on it, and things like that. I 100% get what you're saying. It just seems strange that a giant can spin around and throw a spear without being able to see the person he's looking at. If I'm talking from a fluff perspective, I get what you're saying, mechanic, but from a fluff perspective as well, it doesn't make any sense because he's He can't turn around and charge, but he can just.
Yeah. Exactly the same point. Your basic savage giant isn't allowed to turn around and charge, but the giant spear thrower can turn around and throw a spear at him. Like just mechanically in my head, that just makes no sense. That you allow one thing to happen but not the other. And yes, they take the -3, but like that's not really that big a deal when it comes to not just I am not allowed to versus it being not very likely. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. I'd much rather those mechanics just be removed. Remove the unlimited range, remove the ignore line of sight type things, and potentially give them an extended, double range. So it's like the giant spear has double range, but then like an E where it could fire up to 24 inches with the -3. Because then it gives you, it gives you that like range idea, and it gives you that ranged concept, but it isn't just you just flat out ignore everything and all the mechanics in the game.
Yeah, that's totally. I get that. Yeah, I'd like to see it, because I think as well that if you were to take away the unlimited range and ignore line of sight, I think that then rewards clever ball positioning as well. Not being making sure you could cover as much of the battlefield as you can through that cone of vision, rather than just I can be faced wherever I want. I can face this way, block a charge, and still shoot the unit behind me. I think it'd be better to be if they ignored that. But if we, go.
The one thing I'd say is that we can talk about Night's Watch and Free Folk for having these mechanics in the game, and it is a bit luck. It's a bit casino-y, but it's not particularly fun for every other faction in the game to build lists and have to think about these two components, knowing that if they've got cavalry in both of their lists, there's a good chance that if someone just runs this, that they might just get accidentally sniped off the board and lose a unit quite early on, which is usually a death knell for most players. And it won't even be down to necessarily skill.
But anyway, let's talk about the speed, because the concept of them, the idea behind them, the feeling of them is really cool.
Yeah,
everyone loves giants throwing massive spears and trees and stuff. So that's really cool. And I think so I feel like these were made to give Free Folk a way to sort of directly attack cavalry. Would you think that's right in saying that?
Yeah, it gives them a counter to cavalry and kind of like those types of things, and it does work, surprisingly. It's a mobile weapons platform is the way to think about this, and it's good at doing that. And I look, if you got rid of some of the text on this card, I actually think they'd still be very playable and perfectly fine to have in the game, and I'd be a lot less pissed off by them. And that's not the players, by the way. It's never the players running this. It's just I just don't like the design space. And you could remove 2 lines of text on this card, and I would have a lot less of an issue running them myself and playing them myself, and then playing against them as well. So, yeah, they're not. It's not a power problem. They are good, arguably a bit too strong, perhaps. They are very playable. You should be using giant spear throwers in definitely a giant list, if not in one of your 2 list pairs, most likely.
Okay, cool. Well, let's get on to the War Mammoths. So these got a bit of a tweak in Season 6. So let's see if they're worth their playing. And obviously, again, we come down to miniatures. The Mammoth miniature is incredible. Everybody wants to see things like the War Mammoth on the tabletop. So let's get into the details of the card. Let's find out if Mickey's running them. So it's a 6-point unit. Again, on the cavalry base. A 6-inch move, a 4+ to hit, or with 7 dice. So 7 dice, it doesn't depreciate because there's no ranks. As a 3+ morale, a 6+ armor save. And it comes with a Mammoth rule. So this unit has 8 wounds. This unit cannot control objectives. This unit can only suffer a maximum of 2 wounds from failing the panic tests. When this unit is destroyed before being removed, target 1 enemy is engaged with, they suffer D3 wounds to represent an elephant falling on top of them. And it has the rampage attack ability, which is innate, so it cannot be lost. So critical blow, sundering. Before rolling attack dice, the defender becomes panicked. And when charging, this unit may re-roll any charge distance dice, and your army may only include up to 2 mammoths as per the limited rule. Mammoths, Mickey, when they came out, they were a plague. then they got nerfed into oblivion. Are they slowly making their way back into your lists?
Yeah, slowly. I'm still not certain. I'm still not certain at all. Charge rerolls in the latest buff. It makes taking on the 2 and 3 up charges a bit more palatable. But I'm not looking to fish for 5 and 6 up charges very often with these. The 4+ to hit hurts, unfortunately. And that's kind of really the big switch off, because again, a weakened token makes these quite difficult to really utilize. But yeah, they're fine. Warmaths are fine. They teeter on the brink of being playable and decent. I think they lose out to a lot of the good stuff in the game. They just don't trade as effectively as they might want to with some of them. But no, it is something that I probably will take to an event soon. In Mammoth, so I will want to try and run it. And I will actually add that there is quite an immediate list that stands out to a lot of players with Mag the Mighty. Is a Mag double giant double Mammoth 3 NCU list. And what I would say is that that's a perfectly playable list if you want to run a Mag commander. And yeah, sure, you're running these Mammoths that potentially aren't that good, but they're not bad. They're not like, oh my god, Mammoths are terrible. They're just, on the tabletop and on the kitchen table, on the tabletop at the club, anything that you go and play these in, the Mammoths will be fine. They just aren't something I would want to play at the Invitational.
Right, well, we need a mounted command, don't we? We need a mounted Mag the Mighty. Definitely which? Mag the Mighty. So this is the 9-point version of Mag the Mighty. We're going to get onto the commander version later on. So again, 9 points, movement 5, 7 dice hitting on 3s, 4+ arm save, 4+ morale. It's the giant special rule. Again, I won't go over it. We would know what that is. It comes with a Chieftain's Fury attack, and this is again another innate ability that can't be taken away. So it comes with Vicious. Defenders do not roll defense dice. When Mag is destroyed, before being removed, he performs 1 Chieftain's Fury attack. Chieftain's Fury just being the name of his attack, so he just basically attacks again. I mean, there are lots of stuff in the Free Folk that make him even more scary, but Mag the Mighty is a hell of a puncher, isn't he?
Yeah, and my analysis throughout this next segment is going to be boiled down into 2 words, Mag, smash. Yep. I think that is all anyone ever needs to know.
It's true, mate. It's true. He's absolutely devastating on the tabletop.
Yeah,
and he should be.
Mag smash. Mag smash. Like Mag seriously smash. There is no more I can say. He is a bulldozer. Mammoths want to be the missile and the bulldozers, which is, we just talked about, they want to be these kind of like, charge a mammoth into things, get into combat. And then it kind of happens and they kill your mammoth and you're a bit sad. Whereas like Mag's the mammoth herder, if you will. You go, cool, get him into combat. And your opponent goes, oh Christ, it's Mag. And then Mag goes in and Mag kills a bunch of guys and your opponent's still quivering and they're like, oh my God, it's still Mag. I need to kill it. And then Mag kills them and then he charges into something else and guess what? He kills that. Or they finally kill Mag and in response, Mag kills that unit. And the whole time your opponent's just like, dear God, for the love of God, please take this away from me. Please let this take it off the board. Mag is a magnet, literally a magnet of hate for your opponent. Your opponent will invest so much trying to kill this, and you can leverage the space that Mag makes by doing loads of other things. And Mag smash. Mag smash. Mag charge, Mag smash, Mag charge, Mag smash. Mag get to open round with swords. Mag super happy. Mag do extra smash. Mag smash. Mag win. Mag fun.
It's the amount of times getting that perfect combo of Mag as well, with having the raid leader engaged, having the overwhelming assault. So you're hitting on 8 dice, hitting on 2 is a critical blow. Mate, it is absolutely terrifying.
Super smash.
Super smash, indeed.
Yeah. I mean, this is. I mean, what I would say about Mag unit is that like the analysis of this thing is unbelievably simple because there is nothing complicated about what he does. He gets into melee, and he butchers it. That's what you want. That's what you want from Mag the Mighty. You want something that the moment he steps near them, they die.
Yeah.
He's the most expensive unit in the whole game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's portrayed perfectly, isn't he, on the tabletop? I mean,
Yeah.
he's again, it's really cool because you want to be able to play these units, so you want to be able to play your Magnemite, you want to play your Giants, your Mammoths and stuff. So when they get it right and they get it this right, and you are seeing Mag again, I know you obviously did a bit of tweaking to your Mag, and it's actually great, but even for someone that isn't overly keen on conversions, the Mag miniature, he looks powerful. I mean, I know he's swinging the old axe over his head, but I think they've just got Mag as a miniature, as a piece, from the fluff side of it. He is exactly what he should be, which is large, powerful, and smash.
Correct. Grant, we've torn. Everyone needs to just take a minute and realize that Grant has indeed learned today mag smash.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love him. I love him because he's simple. You know when people say, this game's about getting to melee combat, and then you get to be a good player, and you're like, actually, it's all about movement, and it's actually a lot about not making melee attacks. And then you have this thing, and you say, well, what's this in the list? And you go, yeah. Well, everyone said they wanted to bring a bigger nail, so I bought the biggest nail.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that he's an auto-include in most of your list, or is he definitely one of the pairings that you take to a tournament?
I mean, I don't know if he's an auto-include in the list pair. I don't know if I couldn't really say. I think you have to decide. Do you want to make the Magnemite as a commander option? So that's something you will have to discuss in your own internal discussions first. But ultimately, if you are building a Varamyr list or any list from an other commander, your first question should be, do I want to put Mag in this list and make this a Mag list? If your answer is yes, do so and enjoy it. Mag Smash. Play a Mag themed list. Doesn't have to be Mag Commander. Build a list that's designed to just get him into combat and propel him into combat. The likes of Tormund and other things can, just push him to 11 and just play Mag Smash, because he is the most expensive single point you can spend in the entire game. He is a 9-point unit, the only above 8-point unit in the entire game. If you're putting this in your list, you've done so for a reason. Make that decision early in your list building, run with it, enjoy it, and the last thing I'll say, in case it isn't obvious, Mag Smash.
Awesome. Well, you could say it was bear good, so let's get into the bears in. So an 8-point unit, and everyone loves polar bears. Again, we talk about miniatures again, and I find myself repeating this probably more so in this conversation than I have in some of the other faction reviews we've got around to. Froshaw Bear Rider miniatures are lovely. OJ's ones, I don't know if you've managed to catch them, just absolutely incredible.
I mean, OJ's a superb hobbyist, and something that the reason I like OJ's stuff is not because he's just a painter. He's also does the conversions and things, and he makes it his own. His stuff is unique and it's brilliant and it's lovely to see. And alongside that, he's a lovely bloke to talk to about it. He's really, like a lot of the people in the community, he's a lovely guy. His free folk stuff is really nice, and I certainly see some things he's done has inspired me to do things. I'm not nearly as good a hobbyist as he is, but yeah, like his bear riders are lovely.
Yeah,
really lovely.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so yeah, an 8-point unit, 4-inch move. They have the short range spear toss, so 4+ to hit on a 4/4, so it doesn't depreciate at all. It stays on 4 dice. The spear and maul, which is a melee attack profile of 6/4 hitting on 3, so that's a nice 3+ to hit here. Then we have a 4+ armor save and a 5+ morale, so quite a good defensive profile. Then we have the order charging volley, so after this unit completes a ranged attack, this unit performs 1 charge action on the defender. Then they come with bear cavalry, so this is the different cavalry rule that I was speaking to you all about. So each model in this unit has 4 wounds. At the start of this unit's activation, it may perform 1 maneuver action. Then it comes with all of the keywords. So it comes with Spear and Maul, which is vicious, sundered in precision, purely on the melee attack. So this is the first 16 wound unit that we have, or the first and only 16-point unit a 16 wound, 16 point unit. That'd be a bit hell of a spend, wouldn't it? 16 wound unit in the game. Bear Riders, mate, really nice miniatures, and often I see them used to actually devastating effect, as you would expect from Polar Bear. But what are you thinking on Frozen Shore Bear Riders?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to start with the negative, which is really weird because most people want to end with a negative and talk about that. But I actually think I'm going to start with the negative because it will make you realize how good these things can be. The negative that these guys have is that they don't synergize with the infantry type abilities that free folk have, right? So again, when you're including these in lists, you know about this in advance. You're willing to say, look, they don't have those synergies. I'm putting them in anyway because I want this and this and this. And that leads on to the positives. They just do everything you want. Like, they don't need the synergies because they have every keyword you want. Except crit blow, but like, I mean, that would be asking too much. They have charging volley, so they can attack and then charge off swords for an opener. They have a 4-up armor, which, as we know, is pretty damn good in free folk. They have a 5-up morale. That's perfectly fine for an 8-point cavalry unit. And good for free folk. They have 16 wounds, which is really quite tanky. The only thing they don't have is movement. But they've got cav move, and you've got Igrit if you want to move them to movement 5, so, like, who cares? And they don't have that many attack dice compared to, like, your Lance Cavalry, because they've only got 6/4. But, like, who cares? Because you have all the keywords, and 6 dice is not awful. You hit on 3s anyway. Like, I mean, none of this is that bad. Like, they literally do everything. So when your bad list of category of things is they don't synergize with the free folk deck very well, and your good list is I'm good at everything. I mean, you can't really complain, can you? As it goes for a unit, like, that's a very weighted list. One of those sides has got a lot of things on it. One of them is very short list. Yeah, Bear Riders are completely playable at 8. They will make certain people's competitive lists. I think they've got, good play in the modern version of the game right now with the Rattleshirt changes. I actually think Season 6 has probably been quite beneficial to Frozen Shore Bear Riders. I think they're better in Walrus lists than they were with the changes that we saw to the Walrus strength. Like right now, Frozen Shore Bear Riders are probably in the best spot they've ever been, and they were already very good when they got the charging volley changes. So yes, play Bear Riders, enjoy painting them, enjoy hobbying with them, paint them up, put them on the table. You will not regret having them.
Would you say, are they a forgiving unit with that armor so and the amount of wounds they have? Would you say they're quite forgiving for newer players?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Again, we could talk about that list of things that they're good at, because they're kind of good at everything. A newer player will probably find them quite easy to get usage out of. That's not to say that a newer player will get a lot of strong usage out of them, but a newer player will definitely be able to put these on the board and know, guess what, I want to be able to charge things, I want to be able to shoot things and then charge things, and I want to be able to kind of get in combat with them and, bash out combats and stuff. Like, all of that is what this unit can do, and it's not bad at any of those things. It might lose any one of those individual duels against individual units that could be better at those things than this, but it's not bad at any of them. It's just not as good as specialized things could be. And as a result, yeah, I think a newer player will get value out of Frozen Shore Bear Riders. They'll enjoy playing them. They'll enjoy balls. I mean, who doesn't want a bear just mauling someone's face off? No, these guys are great. And you know what? Play them. I actually really like them. I've heard a few lists with them, or even 7 and 8 activation lists with these guys, and don't feel like they're terrible choices. Again, I'd question whether or not I would ever be like really top tier, getting the most value out of this all the time. But like, as a solid performer, it's going to be there as like, it's going to put in a shift. It will do what it's supposed to do on its tin. Just enjoy it.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So next up we have Bonelord's Chosen. So there's a lot of detail on the screen here because I start at the bottom. So it can only this unit is basically an elite unit of followers of bone, and they can only be fielded in an army, including Rattleshirt, and he must be attached to this unit. But it doesn't matter which one. It could be the attachment version, which we'll see later on, or the commander version. So these are 6 points. So you're paying an extra point, and they've got a 5-inch movement, 3+ to hit on these ones, so a better to hit profile. 764, a 5+ armor, 6+ morale. They come with vicious. They come with horrific visage, which is each time enemy forms melee attack this unit. Again, same as the followers of bone. Before resolving attack, they target the attacker. They suffer a panic test with -1 to their roll for each main rank in the unit. And they come with Prey on Fear as a new rule just for this unit. So each time an enemy engaged with this unit fails a panic test, this unit restores 2 wounds. So a lot of synergy with vicious, a lot of synergy with horrific visage. And on screen, I put the 2 versions of Rattleshirt. I'm not going to read these out. They're there for your viewing pleasure. Myself and Mickey will go over these when they come up as attachments and commanders. But Bonelord's Chosen, a far heavier hitting version of the Followers of Bone, right?
Yeah, a lot heavier, and just that 3+ to hit just makes a big difference, like a really big difference. And that's basically the only change outside of the Prey on Fear. You get all of that for 1 point. But it makes a big difference. The 3+ to hit is such a barrier. With a weaken token on 4+, like there's a real good chance with no sundering you just won't do any damage. But yeah, these guys on a 3+, it's worth spending the point in Free Folk realistically for that. And you're also then running Rattleshirt, so you're going to get Intimidating Presence anyway, which doubles down with Horrific Visage, actually makes it a pretty good ability with the extra -1, but more importantly, the extra wound on fail. Prey on Fear gives it its own sustain if it does take wounds from any kind of like those static effects of opponents, Horrific Visage, maybe some traps if your opponent's running like trap or how do you call it? Chip effects on your unit. You'll heal that up, and the cool thing is that you might heal that up when your opponent attacks you. So they might have done some wounds to try and weaken you, and then they charge you, and then you heal before they make their attack, which is hilarious because it means they're much less likely to kill you. The Bonelord's Chosen are very good, given that you are going to be running Rattleshirt in them as well. And Rattleshirt, we'll talk about the attachments later on, but Rattleshirt is pretty good value. Bonelord's Chosen is going to be playable. The changes to Rattleshirt Commander will see the Bonelord's Chosen see a lot more play, I think. They're a unit that I've always liked to play when they were at 7 points. It was really difficult to justify taking them. They dropped them down to 6, and it was like, oh, that's palatable. They then improved the morale alongside the Followers of Bone. That was cool. And they gave them the extra attack dice and things like that. And it's all just very much, they've been getting better and better, and I think they're now very playable. Play the Bonelord's Chosen. They're fun, and who doesn't like being super scary?
Also get a bit of benefit with these additional points for attachments now. I agree, Rattleshirt, I think, as a commander, looks really nice from the sidelines from my perspective. Obviously, you've got extra points for attachments now, so it's relatively simple to get them into a list, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a lot easier, a lot more palatable. You are now suddenly just buying a 6-point unit, and it's an effective 6-point unit, rather than those extra 2 points being too much of a worry. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Next up, we have Varamyr Sixskins. Now, this is going to cover 2 pages, Mickey, because obviously there's quite a lot involved with Varamyr. This is just the normal unit. So it's a 3-point solo. So it comes in a small square base, same as Giants. He's got a 4-inch movement because he's riding a bear. He's got a vicious mauling, so 3 dice hitting on 3s. He has a 3+ armor save and a 4+ morale. He has the Master Skinchanger ability, so he comes with 4 wounds. At the start of this unit's activation, it may perform 1 maneuver action, and he gains Varamyr's Eagle, see that unit's card for additional effects. And the vicious mauling comes with sundering, vicious, and gains +1 attack die for each wound this unit has suffered. Varamyr's Eagle also on the screen. So Varamyr's Eagle, at the start of each round, attach this card to 1 enemy combat unit until the end of the round, placing this model near the unit's tray to mark it. This model is ignored for all other purposes. It comes with Varamyr's Scout, so once each turn, when this unit performs a maneuver or march action, before resolving the action, 1 Varamyr Shadowcat or Wolfpack may perform a 2-inch shift. Obviously, that's whilst being on the unit, so that when the unit it's attached to makes a move or march, then the Varamyr stuff gets to do its thing. But Varamyr attachment, it's a nice cheap, it's all been quite nice and cheap, but a cheap activation for free folk. We're going to get into his pets afterwards, but feel free to reference him and I'll get on screen in a minute.
Yeah, Varamyr is a 3-point activation, and so as a result, you should really think about like this is going towards a more activation heavy list archetype. He is fine. He's a package again. Remember, he won't synergize with the infantry based deck and things like that. So that's just something to bear in mind, and that's not a bad thing. It's just again, you just got to be conscious of that. He is good value for 3. He is a good activation. He is self-sustainable. I think the thing with Varamyr, as you'll see, is that he doesn't. He with the reduced attack die, he used to be at 4. He's now at 3 attack die. He doesn't really survive many things at 4 wounds. And yes, his 3 up armor's good. The 4 up morale is good, but like any concerted effort, he can accidentally just die, especially to anything we mentioned before about like ambush changes, among other things. A vulnerable token and sundering, and all of a sudden 6 hits has got a decent chance of killing you. So it's just worth to remember that he's not a meat block. He's not this kind of like thing that like the mountain, where sometimes the mountain could just tank a hit from an enemy infantry unit and be like, let's absolutely go. He's not the mountain. That being said, you get him down to 1 wound and he's suddenly throwing 6 dice. This guy does like to maul people's faces. Yeah, he's fine. Like he's very good. He's very playable. He's perfectly like allowable to put in lists. But you want to put him in lists because of the activation advantage he's going to give you. And remember that pass tokens exist nowadays, so you're looking to try and get much higher in list activation than you might initially think. He's good though. He's fine. The strength in Varamyr is not Varamyr in and of itself, but what he unlocks in list building, which is what we'll see. I often think that if you've put Varamyr in the list without taking the other things, then Varamyr, it used to be that was the right decision. I think nowadays that's probably not the right decision. I think Varamyr without those other things is just not that good a spend of points. Not that he's saying he's bad, because you need him to unlock the really good stuff. So he's kind of like, do it if you want the other good stuff. Only ever then pick this on his own if you really know why you've done that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, should we get into the other stuff? Because I think that will...
Yeah.
That
definitely.
will really open the eyes.
Okay, so cool. So up on screen then we have the Wolf Pack and the Shadowcat. So the Wolf Pack is a 3-point unit, is a 6-inch move, a 3 dice hitting on 3s, a 4+ armor save, and a 2+ morale. It comes with Varamyr's Wolf Pack, so it has 3 wounds, cannot control objectives, and cannot grant victory points. At the start of this unit's activation, it may perform 1 maneuver action, so it gets that little cavalry maneuver. And it has Distract. During your turn, enemies that this unit is engaging in the flank or rear lose all abilities and cannot be the target of friendly tactics cards. Hell of an ability, that. And the Shadowcat at 2 points. So there's a 6-inch move with a claw / attack, which is a 3+ to hit on 2 dice. We have a 4+ armor save, 2+ morale. And Varamyr's Shadowcat has 2 wounds, cannot control objectives, and cannot grant victory points. At the start of this unit's activation, it may perform a maneuver action. This unit does not deploy as usual. At the start of any round, you may deploy this unit fully within short range of any flank table edge. And it comes with Disrupt. So enemies engaged with this unit suffer -1 to hit. And obviously, both characters, they can only be fielded in an army, including Varamyr's Sixskins. So yeah, feel free to talk us through the Varamyr's pets.
Yes. So I'm going to start with the Wolf Pack because this is more of a direct gameplay piece. The Shadowcat we'll talk about independently in a minute. The Wolf Pack for 3 points is, not a damage piece, but it goes into about what we just talked about in utility. Distract is pretty obscene. Being able to shut down any tactics cards and just turn off all abilities of that unit. If that was an NCU, you would pick it up every time. We see Ariane picked up, we see Tywin's picked up, we see equivalent effects like that picked up wherever they can be and used to great effect, certainly in competitive play. The wolf pack is that ability on a stick that you can apply anywhere and do a lot with. The wolf pack is nuts. Absolutely game changer, game opener in Free Folk. And this is where, this with something that is very good at killing things, pretty good combo. You might have heard me say something like Mag Smash before. You put the wolf pack into the flank of an enemy that Mag is about to smash, then get to charge Mag into it at the end of the last activation of the round and open swords. That unit is basically dead. Like, you got to have an absolute miracle for that unit not to just be dead. Like, there is no better combo in the game at killing something. Pretty much, like, there's nothing more reliable and more solid. The wolf pack is nuts, and especially in a game where people are now paying points for attachments. Guess what? Still turns off attachment abilities as well. So just get the wolf pack in the flank, pin a unit down, and then just get to go ham on it with a big heavy hitter, knowing that all the defensive tech is out of the window.
Yeah,
can't complain.
Yeah, when you get hit, I've played against these with Boar and Blackguard, and just copying these in the flank just makes them just so. Well, it just makes them a can of beans, right? Just lub it in and just get absolutely smashed to pieces. And yeah, they are very strong, very very strong unit. And when we think of things like, where's dead man never die? It's card. Unit's dead. You can't do anything about it, as you say. Just switch off everything that you need to sort of counter some heavy hitters. It's really good. 3 points. I don't think you can spend a better 3 points in the game.
No, I don't. I genuinely don't believe you can.
Nice. The Shadowcat. What are we saying?
2 points. So this is not the same thing at all. This has two roles. One, it's not a deployment, right? So you deploy this at the start of a round. It takes no part in the game in the deployment phase. That's really important because unlike outflank things, you can say, all right, I deploy this in outflank. This doesn't even do that. It just doesn't interact the deployment phase at all. So just something to be mindful of. You then have the next component, which is the disrupt. As we know, a lot of range units typically don't hit that well in melee. Disrupt is very good at stopping those melee attacks. So this is a very nice unit to be able to outflank or effectively outflank, but bearing in mind it can do it any turn, and then get involved with a ranged unit to either keep it busy and not shooting your squishy units elsewhere, or to just run into it, tie it up in melee, and it probably is just a pain in the ass to kill the cat in melee. So they'll probably end up retreating, and that in and of itself is just unit efficiency that you can take away from the enemy and just really annoy them with the Shadowcat. It'll die eventually, it'll get killed. So what? It's a 2-point unit. It is what it is. It doesn't give up VPs. It doesn't do much damage, although, it's nice to get like the equivalent of a vicious panic check if you attack something in the rear. But it doesn't do a lot of damage. It's not about the damage that this does, though. It's about the absolute sheer frustration. We talked about Free Folk being efficient. This is a unit that removes your opponent's efficiency. It makes them just cry. And if we are winning the efficiency game, then this is good. The Shadowcat is fine. It's a great addition, but it's certainly it's not as good as the Wolfpack. Except the Shadowcat is very good in certain game modes. Because the Shadowcat, for example, can just come on in the back corner of the board and be in your opponent's board space to score 2 victory points on secret objective missions.
Yeah.
It has 2 wounds. It can charge into the rear of something, and especially if it's already engaged in the front, this charging in the rear, it might be able to strip a rank. It can potentially contest objectives. Vicious panic checks. People can drop objectives. Even if the cat can't take it. On Feast for Crows and Dance with Dragons, maybe the opponent just drops it. Yeah. And sometimes that's enough. This is a very game mode, game position, efficiency piece. The Shadowcat is perfectly good, perfectly playable. I would never pick it over the Wolfpack. But, hey, it's 5 points to take both.
Yeah.
It's not a bad package, is it?
Not bad, mate. Is it as good as Harma's Vanguard though? 5 points.
Anyway,
It's close.
let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm not
again,
even going to grace that with an answer.
and again, mate, it comes down to what we well, I've often seen you talk about online. You've been on some of the streams and say as well, which is know your game modes. You know, but if you know your game modes and you've got things like this that text into it, it's you're already a cut above. So
yeah, definitely
awesome. Okay, sweet. Well, that is all of the units done for Free Folk. So we're going to move now into the attachments. So first up on the screen, we have some of the 1 point. Well, there's lots of 1 point attachments in Free Folk. We're going to start with the Raider, also the Raid Leader, with a 1 point attachment with Gang Up. So all friendly units, melee attacks, gain +1 tier and +1 attack die on the enemies that are engaged with this unit and at least one other friendly unit. I read that in a really weird way, but hopefully you get what that means. And then again, all these 1 points. I'm not going to continue to repeat that. So Chosen of Styr. This is a newly revamped Season 6 card. So he comes with Furious Charge. Enemies successfully charged by this unit become vulnerable. And he comes with Go Down Fighting. So each time a rank in this unit is destroyed, one enemy they're engaged with suffers 1 wound. So a bit of a strange combination of offense and defense there. And the Spearwife Matriarch that you mentioned before comes with the order Swift Retreat. After an enemy completes a melee attack on this unit performs 1 retreat action. 3 very different attachments, Mickey. What do we think?
Yeah, so raid leader reminder, you get a raid leader with the Endless Horde when the raider comes on. So you're going to need a few of these in any events you go to. You're going to want to paint a few of these up and do them up anyway. And you know what? For 1 point, having Gang Up on a unit is never a terrible decision. They probably don't necessarily make the lists as a base attachment, purely because you do get them through Endless Horde, and we have ways of moving them and sharing the abilities. That doesn't mean you're not taking it. It just means it's probably, of all of the 3, you already essentially have access to this during the game. That being said, I can see this being picked up and played, in Thens, where they're going to be taunting enemies to try and hit them anyway, maybe engage with them, even just in a value unit of raiders to give Thens or Followers of Bone more efficiency there. There's lots of ways you can use the raid leader, and having one of it in the list to share abilities, even if it's just for like a 1 gang up attack, that is enough to push units over the top. We talk about these escalating efficiencies, these small things that escalate into big benefits. This is one of the things that can just be combined to give you those big benefits. Chosen of Styr, not one of my personal favourites. I know that Larks has been quite a popular favourite of this. And it does work into kind of solos, or where you need those extra few wounds from Go Down Fighting and Furious Charge, giving you the vulnerable tokens. But you're probably not charging with this unit per se. So yeah, the Furious Charge is fine. The Go Down Fighting element is really why you're picking this. And that can be okay into certain things, giving you that little bit of chip damage. And we do have a lot of ways of manipulating the number of ranks units have in Free Folk. So you can kind of funnel wounds in so that this isn't actually just doing 3 wounds with the 3 ranks you've taken, but potentially more like 4 or even 5 or even 6. And that can be quite powerful. You can kill a giant from full health without ever actually doing a wound to it through an attack action. It takes a while. I'm not going to say it's quick, but it's possible. So yeah, the Chosen Styr is fine value, and I would expect it to see some play, and you'll see some good players testing it out, definitely. Spearwife Matriarch is one of these abilities that kind of comes in and out of fashion, Swift Retreat being always a good ability, but whether or not you want it in the game and whether or not the game is pushing towards those melee attacks that you're going to want to retreat out of, it does differ on the setting and the season that we're in. I think Season 6 is a season where Swift Retreat is gotten better. I think it's going to be more prevalent. I think it's going to be a better ability to have. So I think Spearwife Matriarch is going to see play a lot more, and I would fully recommend this, as I said earlier, with your Spearwives.
Nice. Okay, cool. We'll crack on with the next one, because again, it's another 3 unnamed units, or unnamed attachments, sorry. So again, all 1 point attachments. We have the revamped Walrus Clan Chieftain, who has dropped resilience for Hardened. So Hardened is each time an enemy is performing an attack on this unit, after rolling defense dice, this unit blocks 1 hit for each of its destroyed ranks. and it comes with Iron Resolve. So it gains +1 to panic test rolls and suffers -1 wounds from failing panic test. So a little bit of mitigation there for the Raider stuff. Also, the character Alpha, Order Insight. So when it is performing a melee attack before rolling attack dice, this attack gains vicious and rolls its highest attack die value. And a Champion of Bone that just comes with Intimidating Presence. Enemies engaged with this unit suffer -1 roll test rolls and +1 wound from failing panic tests. So some really nice attachments there. The Casual Alpha for me just seems to be, I know it gets the highest attack die value for the Casual Savages, but well, to be fair, I think he does synergise quite well with them. But anyway, you're here to tell me. You tell me. Does it synergise?
The Cave Dweller Alpha does synergise with the Cave Dwellers.
Yeah.
The real problem here, and this isn't really kind of obvious, I think, is that Insight's just not a very good order. Like having max dice and vicious for one attack in a round. Yes, if you're only getting one attack, that's fine, I guess. But like, it also prevents using other on attack abilities because they're going to be tactics cards, and you know, we have crit blow, sundering, we have rerolls in tactics cards, and that to some extent is probably just better. Like, this isn't bad, but it's just not great for 1 point. And I just generally just don't think Insight's that good an ability anyway. So yeah, like for me, probably not interested in the Cave Dweller Alpha. He's not bad. Like, people could play him, and I wouldn't be like, you should never run this. It just isn't for me. What's actually a little bit frustrating, if you're familiar with Starks and the new Umber Champion, the Umber Champion has Insight and another ability for 1 point. Makes these feel pretty sad. And that's something you'll actually see a little bit, is our attachments are quite focused on one thing, and they're not always the most best points value for money, but what they are is always filtered around one efficient thing rather than these mixed ability attachments that you see in other factions. And that can be a blessing and a curse at the same time. So yeah, Cave Dweller Alpha, fine, synergizes, fine, whatever. Champion of Bone with Intimidating Presence, you can't complain. 1 point from Intimidating Presence. Other people do that as well. Completely on the money in terms of what it should cost. Completely fine attachment. I've run it in Fellows of Bone. I've run it in Raiders when I wanted, way back in Season 1, to beat other free folk players by engaging with Intimidating Presence and using that to leverage a benefit. Over time, I think 1 point for Intimidating Presence is like, I'm not necessarily picking it up in lists. It's not necessarily like the go-to thing, but like, you can't complain about it being bad. It isn't bad. It's not a problem. It's completely on the money of something that you might want to take, but it's also not overshadowing like named attachments, which is not what you want. You want named attachments to be better, and it doesn't overshadow those. So yeah, completely playable, completely fine. And the Walrus Clan Chieftain, I'm actually gutted this came down from 2 points with Resilience and Iron Resolve to 1 point. I used to use it at 2 points. I think it could be spammed at 2 points, which is probably why they did it. That being said, Hardened, don't really care too much about. I'll come back onto that in a second. Iron Resolve in Free Folk is great, you know, offset a bit the extra wounds. -1 flat wound on every panic test is just good. It literally is less damage you will take. You don't actually care as much about the panic improvement so much as the lower number of wounds, so that is good. The Hardened, the problem is that Hardened has taken a bit of a hit. It used to be 1+1. Now it's just a flat 1 per rank. And that's just unfortunately not very good in Free Folk because we kind of die quite easily. So a couple of extra blocks when you're on 1 rank, it's probably not going to be enough to save you. So like, the Hardened you don't really care too much about. But the Iron Resolve is perfectly fine. I actually think this is more playable in things like Thens now, where it used to be you want to put this in Trappers with the Resilience, because it just makes Trappers 6+ armor a joke because you're still taking half damage, and then the 8+ morale doesn't matter because you're taking less wounds. Whereas now I think you want to use Thens to be able to block some hits, then the Hardened blocks the rest.
Nice.
But yeah, playable. All playable. And that's what you want generic attachments to be, is playable.
Yeah, that's all we can ask for. And in a game that now it pushes you to take attachments. To be able to sit here and say these attachments are playable is exactly where we want to be at the minute. Talking of playable attachments, next up we've got the Skinchanger. So it's 1 point attachment. It comes with a bonded Skinchanger. So when this unit is deployed, select bear, eagle, or wolf. See this unit's card for additional effects. When this unit is destroyed, remove its bonded animal. So we've got on screen the wolf. So we have the bonded wolf. So at the start of each round, target one enemy combat unit. Attach this card to the enemy until the end of the round, placing this model near the unit's tray to mark it. The models is ignored for all other purposes. So the rule it comes with Predator's Instinct. So each time this unit charges, it suffers a disorderly charge on rolls of 1 or 2. Each time an enemy performs a melee attack on this unit, their attack gains Vicious. When this model's skin change unit charges this unit, they may re-roll any charge distance dice. And we have the Eagle. So this comes with a bonded Eagle. At the start of each round, target one enemy combat unit. Attach this card to that enemy until the end of the round. Placing this model near the unit's tray to mark it. This model is ignored for all other purposes, so exactly the same as the bonded wolf. And it comes with aerial scouting. So once each turn, when this unit performs a maneuver or march action before resolving the action, this model's skin changer unit may perform a 2-inch shift. And each time an enemy performs a melee attack on this unit, the attacker gains precision. So the difference being there is the one that gives you the vicious one that gives you precision. Then we have the bear, the bonded bear. So with this guy, he comes with it's basically a unit. It's a solo model. He's a 4-inch move. He comes with 3 dice, 3+ Savage Mauling attack. There's a 3+ armor save and a 3+ morale. He comes with a bonded bear rule. So he has 3 wounds. Cannot control objectives and cannot grant victory points. When this unit is selected, deploy it fully within short range of another friendly free folk unit and at least 1 inch away from an enemy unit. At the start of any round, if this unit is not in short range of another friendly free folk unit, it is destroyed. This unit does not activate as normal. Instead, once per turn, when this model skin change unit activates, this unit activates immediately after them. And the enemies engaged this unit suffer -1 to defense dice rolls. And he comes with Sundering with Savage Mauling. That was a lot of reading, and that writing is tiny on the screen, which is why I got a bit tough at times. But yeah, the skin changer. What are we saying?
Yeah, they're cool. They're cool. They give you something a bit different. It's dubious whether they're actually very good. And really, you find that they're a bit of a weird hit and miss type thing in that they can be quite powerful, and the bears as roadblocks are really good. The bears also synergize with the -1 defense, like aura, if you will, with what they're engaged with. That's really scary when you consider that you've got Thens with Hold the Line. You know, being able to charge Thens into a unit, then bears in, is like scary. But then being able to activate the Thens when in combat, and then going, cool, I will now use Hold the Line where you're at -1. Sundering Hold the Line is really quite scary. So, you know, there is a lot to be said about the bear aura actually being quite nice. The bears themselves don't have a huge damage output, but they are scary, and as I say, they're not terrible. They're actually surprisingly tanky as well. They don't die as easily as people would like. So the bear's fine. The wolf and the eagle are very much tech pieces, like we've said before, and I quite like using them quite a lot to give you those keywords and to give you those more versatility in what you might run, and some little bonuses here, there, and everywhere. That being said, you know, the bear is probably the most reliable one to get value out of. I just like the rest. Are skin changes worth a point? Yes. The simple answer is yes. Do I think they are better than other 1-pointers? Don't know. Not sure. Do I think that they are better than the other character attachments? Probably not. There is a space for the skin changer. The bear's probably seeing the most play, being kind of a bit spammed to be roadblocks. I always don't like it and worry that that's going to be like the way to play, because I just think it's very boring. But yeah, skin changers are very playable. They were in season 5. They will be in season 6. I just don't know if you ever want to spam them, and I don't know whether or not you want this over other options necessarily. But yeah, perfectly playable. Play bears and play eagles and wolves if you want. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a nice place to be, right? Is that they're playable, but maybe not spammable, because it gets more stuff into the list. It gets you playing different stuff, different miniatures, getting a feel for the game. Obviously, when these guys first came out, you had the option to basically bounce between the different options. But how have you found having to sort of commit to an animal at the beginning of a game now?
I I like it, but I do think it can come with its own issues. Like the wolf and the eagle can have very limiting impact, if not used properly in the right way. But I like the fact you have to choose and commit, because the whole point of putting these things in the list is so that you know what you're going to do with them. If you are getting to the start of a game and you don't know what you're going to do with that Skinchanger, then why'd you put it in the list, you know? Why'd you pick that list? And, I got questions, buddy. Yeah, like, you picking these things for a reason. You want to take the wolf and the eagle for a reason. And I think it's a good thing to have that variability before the game, because it gives you the ability to choose, pick the right ones for the game mode. And it's down to you as a player to decide on what you want to take. And it's on you whether or not you make the right choice.
Cool. Okay, sweet. So from one Skinchanger straight into another, we've got Borroq. Borroq is a 2-point attachment, so he's a named character Skinchanger from the books. So he has the order hidden traps, which we've seen in the trappers, but I'll read it again, it's been a while. When an unengaged enemy in long range performs any action, before resolving the action, choose one. That enemy suffers 1 hit for each of its remaining ranks, or that enemy suffers -1 movement until the end of that turn. And he comes with Stalwart, so the unit gains +2 to morale test rolls. He also comes with the Boar, Borroq's Boar. It's named. It was up all night thinking of the name for that one, wasn't he? He gets him for nothing, so that's a 0-point unit, the same way as the bear, but a little bit more piggy. 5-inch movement, 3 dice, 3s to hit, 4+ armor save, a 2+ morale, and the bonded boar ability. So the bonded boar says that this unit has 3 wounds and cannot grant victory points. At the start of this unit's activation, it may perform 1 maneuver action. At the start of any round, if this unit is not in long range of Borroq's unit, it is destroyed. So got to be a little bit careful where you place this miniature. And this unit does not activate as normal. Instead, when Borroq's unit activates, this unit activates immediately after them. And its attack ability, Gore and Feed, comes with a base sundering. And after completing its attack, if it dealt any wounds, this unit restores 1 wound. So it's quite a decent package there for 2 points, Mickey. How are you running Borroq?
Yeah, I mean, Borroq has been the way to include traps in lists in Season 5, and I think that continues. We spoke about trappers earlier, just not really making the cut. And these bringing hidden traps along with the Stalwart is just pretty nice. Borroq's Boar has been a staple again in some of the list archetypes we've seen as well. So, yeah, you're going to see Borroq. You're going to see Borroq's Boar. I think they're fine, but very good. Borroq's Boar being able to control objectives, by the way, is one of the biggest switch-ons. Like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. A lot of people didn't realize that, don't know about that, and then it happens in a game, and they're like, oh, Christ, this free Boar is a pain in my ass. And he really is. He's just like the other animals we saw with Varamyr, just actually like the 4+, 2+ defensively, just actually a bit more of a pain to remove than realistically should be. Yes, anything big will kill it, but like small things might not. And it only has to get a little bit of efficiency value out of it to really win you the game. Yeah, Borroq will see play. Borroq's Boar will see play. I personally am going to move away from Borroq a little bit because I'm wanting to run lower activation lists. Now, one of the things that I'll point out to some of the newer players, Borroq's Boar is a unit. It is not an activation in and of itself in terms of the sequence of a round, because it will go directly after Borroq's unit. It won't count as another unit for activation purposes. The reason this matters is it is still a combat unit, and at the start of the game, for pass token calculations, you count the number of units, not activations. As a result, if I had Borroq's Boar, but I was still only an 8 activation list against Grant's 8 activation list, that doesn't have a boar or anything like that, Grant would still get pass tokens because of I have 9 effective units compared to his 8. That is a problem because you're now going to give your opponent pass tokens to utilize, and in a competitive scenario, that's really bad because I've given my opponent more activations than me when I'm playing a list archetype that typically wants to have more activations. As a result, I will probably not be looking to Borroq and Borroq's Boar in some of the 7 and 8 activation lists that I've been cooking up that I really want to try out and play with Free Folk. That being said, I will expect these in the 9 and 10 activation lists that Free Folk are known for. I would expect this to be a staple and continue to be a staple in those archetypes.
Yeah, you spoke a little bit about, the boar control objectives, and it's a pain. And it is easy. It's easy enough to destroy with something heavy hitting enough. But then the opponent is still committing resources to getting rid of a 0-point unit that gives no VPs back. So that in itself is quite powerful for the boar. That your opponent needs to dedicate something to get rid of it. If it's just sitting there, even if it's just sitting in the corner collecting the VP every round. Do you know what I mean? That's something they need to be careful of.
Yeah, 100%. Just we talk about those efficiency savings and things, and this is a really good example of it just makes your opponent inefficient. That's good.
Yeah, I like it. Next up, we have 3 named attachments. We've got Tormund Giantsbane at 2 points, Tall Talker, Hornblower, Breaker of Ice. It comes with all the war cry, so start with a friendly turn. This unit performs 1 morale test. On a success, target 1 enemy in long range. It becomes panicked or vulnerable, and it comes stalwart again, giving this that little bit of morale defense. So it gives us +2 to morale test rolls. Rattleshirt, Ruthless Slaughterer. So he comes with Fueled by Slaughter. After this unit completes a melee attack, if the defender suffers any wounds, this unit restores 1 wound +1 additional wound for each of the defender's destroyed ranks, and intimidating presence. So enemies engaged with this unit suffer -1 to morale test rolls and +1 wound from failing panic tests, and all that for 2 points. And the Weeper, brand new season 6 version, where he's taking hits rather than wounds for Grizzly example. But the order, Grizzly example, start of any turn. This unit suffers 1 hit. Target all enemies in short range. They become panicked. And as a melee ability, it gives the keyword vicious, and just a 1-point attachment this time. So we talk about Song of Ice and Fire, Mickey. We really get into the fluff and the characters. 3 really decent characters here sitting in front of us, especially Tormund, for people that have seen the TV show. Where's the big lady? What are we saying?
Yeah, I mean, Tormund was an absolute staple in the back of 2021 with the old Warcry rules. Tormund's dropped off a bit of a cliff, unfortunately, in terms of his playability after the Warcry change. Warcry's just not very good anymore. It's fine, but it's just I just don't care about it too much. The package is nice. I expect to see Tormund to see a little bit more play in this season, just because you've got those attachment points and what you're going to spend them on. Well, cool shit, and this is classified as cool shit. So yeah, Tormund will see more play, and I think he's still fine. It's just Warcry's a bit sucky. Not that it's bad, it's just not great. Rattleshirt, however, Fueled by Slaughter is my favourite ability in the game. I think it is one of the most powerful and genuinely one of my favourite abilities in the game. I like to be able to heal, to kind of sustain the fight, and I think it plays into those grindy play styles that people like to think the game is about, and this is the perfect grind tool. In with Intim, which synergizes really well with all of that package, just synergizes obscenely well with the Bonelord Chosen. I'm going to be playing Rattleshirt. I'm going to be playing Rattleshirt, Bonelord's Chosen, and you can't stop me, Grant. Okay.
Crack on.
I'm going to do that. I think it's fine. I would even put him in non-Bonelord's Chosen. Followers of Bone wouldn't be that unhappy about this. Even Thens and other things wouldn't be that unhappy about Rattleshirt. It's just great. It's absolutely great. For those of you who don't know, by the way, Rattleshirt is just Ramsay, basically. The free folk version of Ramsay now. So
look for a cool hat.
Yeah, much cooler hat. I mean, and the guy has got 2 bone swords. Right? Well, bone sword and bone dagger. You can't even see the bone dagger. He's holding it back to front and the other side, so he's really secure, secretive with it, I should say. Yeah, I mean, that guy's cool as hell. Weeper up last. He's the only one where I just kind of feel like it just doesn't do what I want it to do. It's now a hit instead of the wound. You got to think of this as like Reek with extra abilities. Yeah, like the Weeper's fine. Like you'd include him, but the problem is that you don't really know where. Like for a time period, he was included in Cave Dwellers, and he could still be, but like the Walrus, as we get onto, probably just a better choice. Yeah, the Weeper's in this weird position where it's like you kind of want him to synergize with Follows a Bone, but he doesn't need to go in Follows a Bone, so he probably wants to go in Thens. But like, you don't really give a toss about giving Thens Vicious. Like you don't really care about that. Like, it's not that important. I'm not saying it's a bad choice. It really isn't a bad choice, and there's a reason this detachment is only 1 point compared to the other two. It's just, like, he's probably... The Weeper, as it stands, is probably the first attachment of the named ones that I'm looking at saying that he's probably going to get a bit more of a pass. And he's not bad. It's not because he's bad. I just think if I'm going to be spending 2 points on an attachment, I want something a bit beefier. And if I'm spending a 1 point attachment, I don't know if Weeper's what I always want.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, you know, won't be in every list. Will be in some, won't be in every. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I think you've hit a nail on the head there. As I knew that you would, is that the unit he wants to be in already has the stuff that he's got. So
yeah,
it's yeah. He's here. Hopefully we'll see a little tweak to him in the next patch. But Rattleshirt. Everyone loves Ramsay with a skull helmet, right?
100%.
Next up, we have Harma the Dog's Head and Harma's Bannerman. So Harma the Dog's Head, 2 point attachment for the Order Sentinel. So after another friendly unit in long range is attacked, this unit performs 1 charge or maneuver action. If charging, it must target the attacker. And enhanced mobility. So this unit gains +1 to movement and may pivot before marching, which is really strong. And it comes, Harma's Bannerman comes with Harma's Vassal. So not so much effective with this version Harma, but the Harma Commander will then sort of trigger quite a few bits and pieces off of that. But this model basically counts as Harma for all abilities and effects. That doesn't mean that he gets all the abilities on Harma's card, as I've seen the conversation come back up again in some of the forums. It's literally just for the effects of like the cards and stuff.
Yeah.
And regroup. After completing the retreat action, this unit restores 2 wounds +1 wound for each of its destroyed ranks. And the Order tactical reposition, start with enemy turn. Target 1 friendly unit in short range. They perform a 3-inch shift. And may only be fielded in an army, including Harma, either version. But this model ignores the usual attachment limits. That's the first time we've seen this come into this now. And this obviously got a lot more purchase on it now because of this. The additional points we spend on attachments means you haven't got to buy another unit to put them in. Not something free folk really have to worry about, but we can see from the attachments on screen, Harma really a mobility piece for free folk. Do you want to talk a little bit about these guys?
Yeah, I've got to be abundantly clear before I start giving you the analysis here. I have a huge bias. I genuinely think Harma is one of the best attachments in the game.
Awesome.
I've thought that for a long time. I've included Harma in so many lists of free folk I've built over the years, all the way through since 2021 first landed. Harma has... if you told me that I could go to any list and add 2 points of attachments to any one of my competitive lists, if Harma's not already in there, the 2 points of attachments I'm adding is Harma every time. Like, every time. And I'm not even joking. I genuinely think she is one of the best attachments in the whole game. I don't know what to say. Sentinel, I think, is just a really cool ability. We see a lot more of it in the game anyway, more recently, where Golden Comedy Crossbowmen with Sentinel just made them a pain in the butt to fight against. And Harma has it, which is cool. But also she has +1 and pivot before marching. Enhanced mobility is genuinely one of the better abilities in the game. Certainly in the early game, without cavalry, you'd be able to reposition, remaneuver, and just kind of really swing the game in a very different manner. Enhanced mobility is pretty damn nuts. She has both Sentinel and enhanced mobility. Like, I mean, what the fuck? Like, excuse my poor language here, but like, Yeah. This is two things I think are really, really good, and they're on one thing. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I have no complaint. I have no words. Like, this is the attachment in Free Folk that I just go to immediately in my thought process every single time you say attachment. The funny thing is Harma's Bannerman for 1 point with the vassal regroup and tactical reposition. For 1 point, that's pretty nutso insane value. Like, ignore the vassal on the most part, it doesn't really matter. But regroup and tactical repo, both perfectly good in Free Folk, perfectly usable, perfectly what I want. Yep. Love that, thank you very much. Like you told me about like the first 2 points of attachments I want to spend are on Harma. Well, the third point most of the time is going to be on the Bannerman. Like every competitive list, if it didn't have Harma and Harma's Bannerman, if you gave me 3 to 4 extra component points, which is what we've been just given in Season 6, and it didn't have these things in, these things are being added to that list immediately. I only ran 2 infantry units in my lists that I won US Nationals with. One of them had Harma in it, the other one had Harma's Bannerman in it. These were in my list way back in 2021. This is the bread and butter of what I think Free Folk has always been about. Efficient, cool, awesome abilities. You share them about, you do cool things, you move them about. Harma's Bannerman ignores attachment limits. That's absolutely insane for Free Folk because it just allows you to build your own bear, as we call it, where you can stack attachments because it really matters here. And we'll cover it when we do tactics decks anyway, but the tactics deck card regroup and reform, which allows you to swap attachments. If you're moving an attachment, you have to conserve attachment limits. But if you're swapping attachments, the second part of that card does not have that requirement. So you can put Harma's Bannerman in with Rattleshirt, for example, then later in the game, swap Harma's Bannerman with Harma, putting Harma into Rattleshirt's unit. That's scary as shit. That's a 10-point unit potentially. Yeah, I mean, can I say any more about these things? If people don't understand that I love these and think that they're really strong, I don't know what more I can say. There's no ability here that you don't want in a game. They're always going to be beneficial. They're always going to be usable. They're always going to be shareable. They're always going to have value. This is everything that I want in Free Folk.
So you think they're all right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, they're all right, yeah. 1 out of 10 would consider. No, this to me genuinely, like, if you said what are the 2 best attachments in the game, there are attachments up there that I think are very good value, and I think that these are they're in my top 5 attachments in the game, both of them.
Yeah. So what units are you putting Harma into?
Whatever unit you want to propel into combat. Thens, if you want to get your Thens into combat, that Sentinel push. Now they're really wanting to attack you, but then you can do the taunt abilities like we said before, where it's like, cool, well, I'm just going to stand 11 inches away and taunt you. Do you really want to charge me? Because you're probably not going to hit, which just gets you killed. Or you charge that unit over there, you get double tokened, and I Sentinel into your flank. Thank you very much. Yeah. Then's pretty good. Follows a Bone, being able to just get extra maneuverability on Follows a Bone, pretty cool. Spearwives, your movement 7, Ygritte, and you to influence to give them movement 8. All of a sudden, you can just march any direction for 16 inches. That's pretty strong to get into someone's flank. If you then want to open next round with swords, you know, I wouldn't discourage that. Yeah, there are tons of units Harma's just good in. I think, you know, Cave Dweller's good. Like, we talked about them, the Harpoon guys, the Walrus, the Frozen Shore Trappers, or Frozen Shore Hunters. I genuinely think she's good in those. The only unit where I think she's wasted in is just because she doesn't feel like you're getting much out of it is Raiders. And that's just because Raiders just a bit sucky. Like, not even saying it's a bad choice. It just always feels bad because why put her in Raiders when you can put her in anything else? You know? Yeah, there isn't a unit in Free Folk that I don't think just gets better with Harma. Like, so your answer is where would I put her normally? And the answer is wherever I can damn well fit her. She decides where Harma goes. Like, Harma gets to decide where she goes.
Awesome.
The Bannerman, we spoke about it in relation with the Spearwife Matriarch and in the Spearwife combo, the bouncing Spearwives being able to get the retreat, get the regroup from Harma's Bannerman for the heal. That's just really strong. You know, I'm a really big fan of Harma's Bannerman in the Spearwife combo. That being said, Harma's Bannerman, again, in any unit, probably ironically not Harma's unit. Because of that regroup and reform and being able to build your own bear, using Harma's Bannerman almost as a placeholder in your list building to be able to move another attachment in during gameplay is huge. And you can create monster, absolutely monster units when you get to swap out Harma's Bannerman for something else. Like, especially if it was comboing with something else, you know, Harma and then Harma's Bannerman and getting Rattleshirt in there for Field by Slaughter, or, you know, moving out something else and you were able to put Walrus Clan Chieftain in. Now you had Resilience, and it was like, oh my god, I already couldn't kill this unit, and now I really can't. How do I stop it? Yeah, you probably tell by my voice I'm really excited by these things, because in Free Folk, this is the kind of thing that just unlocks list building and Jenga and Lego, and everything in Free Folk is about building up efficiency and building up all these cool things that you can do. You're never just going and, oh, I picked that 7-point unit and that 8-point unit and I have got a good list. No, it's about, I'll have that 4-point unit with this 2-point attachment and this thing here and this thing here and this thing here and this thing here, and I'll be able to share these abilities here and do this. And it's a lot of building up. And I know we talk about, like, you build a lot of these things up and it's whether or not you get the payoff. But in Free Folk, you don't care, because the fun was the building and the payoff will come when you play the list. Oh my god. I get so excited because these two attachments encapsulate for me everything that Free Folk is about. This is why I have always loved this faction for so long, because this to me is the gameplay that I enjoy. The thought experiment, the list building, the fun. Yeah. Man, can we just sit and watch these pictures all day and just talk about this all day, and me just fawning over it and just being excited, because this makes me excited.
That's awesome, man. Well, it's great to hear, man. It's great to hear so upbeat about it, about you know, just everything really. And this is what we want people to hear. We want people to hear how enjoyable this game can be from list perspective. You know, and I really feel like, you know, and what I really get to experience from doing these videos is speaking to these people that are dedicated to their factions, and that are the same as yourself. You know, they love what these do. You know, I've interviewed Belisarius about Baratheons, and he's really passionate about that. I've interviewed Mikkel about Greyjoys, and they're so, when you become entrenched in a faction, although obviously you get better at the game when you play other factions, as you have, but when you really do dedicate time to a faction, it just unlocks a whole new game in just the list building side of it. And you know, it's great. And that's what Son of Ice and Fire, it's always done well. It's just inspire every single stage of the game.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
100%.
Talking excitable people, next up we have Jon Snow and Ygritte. We have both 2-point attachments. So we've got Jon Snow, the Crow, come over with the order Reckless Heroism. So when this unit performs a charge action, before resolving the action, the unit suffers D3 wounds, but counts roll a 6 on all charge distance dice. So guaranteed 6 is charge. And the innate ability, Southern Knowledge. So once per game, at the start of any turn, target one enemy in long range and line of sight. Until the end of the turn, they lose all abilities and cannot be target of friendly tactic cards. And we have Ygritte, Spearwife Archer. So she comes with the order marked target. Start for any turn, target one enemy in line of sight and long range, they become vulnerable and disrupt. Enemies engaged with this unit suffer -1 to hit. Some cool little abilities there. Southern Knowledge, obviously, the only time we see this ability is purely for Jon Snow. It's nice to see that they eventually release Jon Snow for Free Folk as well.
Yeah.
One day, hopefully, we'll see a Jon Snow commander, right?
Maybe. You know, that would be quite interesting. Yeah.
Nice. So what are you saying about these two guys at 2 points?
So, I wanted to preface this by saying that coordination tactics and Southern Knowledge doesn't interact, because coordination tactics doesn't copy innates. So Southern Knowledge you only get 1 copy of. I think if it did, it might be a bit too problematic. It would probably do other things. I'm not sure. Jon Snow's a bit of an odd one in that he kind of sits in this weird state of being playable, but he's like exactly everything we've discussed when it comes to other things in the game, like the Frozen Shore and things like that. Is that very playable, nothing wrong with taking it. You probably just don't end up doing it. And the lists where he would probably be best are the lists where Jon Snow NCU shines the brightest. So, unfortunately, he just doesn't see any play because Jon NCU is probably better in those lists. That being said, I do think there's a place for Jon Snow. I do think he's playable. I do think people should potentially consider him. But he always, and I can guarantee you this, always in those infantry spam lists loses out to Jon NCU, who's very good for those types of lists. So yeah, it's not a case where Jon 2-point is bad, but it's like it's the Lannister problem, right? Tywin Commander's not bad, but Tywin NCU is very good. And this is what you see here with Jon 2-pointer. Very playable. If you're not running Jon 2, you might consider this. Being able to just switch off an ability, to help a mag style crunch happen. Switch off abilities without a wolf pack, mag smash. The auto 6, nice, but you're not going to run that in things like Tormund lists because they already have those things. So, you're wanting to work out where you want to do this. What I would use this for is to actually switch off abilities with Southern Knowledge, but copying the Reckless Heroism onto a unit of Cave Dwellers to propel a unit of Cave Dwellers into combat, potentially Cave Dwellers with a 7-inch move from Harma, because then you can charge 13 inches towards the enemy. This could be really, really good when your opponent takes swords as well. So knowing your opponent's going to open swords, being able to coordination tactics, copy Reckless Heroism onto Cave Dwellers to then Sentinel in the flank could be really good. So, but of course, you've got to know what setups and things people are going for. So there's Jon. Ygritte, the same argument, right? Ygritte has the NCU, so again, you're always debating, is it NCU or is it attachment? And unfortunately, the NCU has been pretty good over the years. So, where Jon NCU was pretty crap on release and got made better and better as time has gone on, he's very, very good now. Ygritte NCU has always just been solid, absolute staple in Free Folk. And again, we see these abilities mark target. Well, there were other ways of getting vulnerables, so you didn't need mark target. And disrupt, it's fine, but you're probably just gonna be killing my raiders anyway, so who cares? Again, Ygritte's not bad. It's just do you really want that package for the points you're paying? When we saw how many other things have we already seen that are already super cool?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This isn't fun. The Ygritte's not fun to look at the abilities for. Sometimes stuff that isn't fun can actually be low-key efficient and good over time and actually be pretty good. So I might be giving Ygritte a little bit less credit than she really deserves. But ultimately, she's not fun when you look at those abilities in Free Folk. They're not interesting to play around with and share and do cool things with. So, yeah, I'm not excited by Ygritte. Sorry.
No, that's all right. It's all right. But the NCU though is nice. So we'll get to that at some point. But
she makes nearly everyone on my list because I love the NCU.
Yeah, exactly. And you can say that's always the problem, isn't it? Is when an NCU is that good. You guys have it with Ygritte. Tywin and Lannisters. Courtney Penrose.
NCU Nightwatch. Yeah, Courtney Penrose. Yeah.
There's lots of NCUs that are just so good they just overshadow the attachment version, which is it's fine, as long as these characters are cool and in your lists and you're still having fun, that's what matters, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Okay. Well, that now leads us to Jarl, the advanced raid leader, the Great Walrus, Steel through Ice and Snow, and Mance Rayder, Abel the Bard. So Jarl, the advanced raid leader, comes with outflank. You may hold this unit off of the table in reserve instead of deploying it. At the start of any round, if you are not the first player, you may place one unit from reserve fully within short range of a friendly or flank table edge unactivated. and Jarl ignores the usual attachment limits. Then we have the Great Walrus, still through ice and snow, battle scars. So it's a melee attack ability. Each time this unit performs a melee attack, before rolling attack dice, choose 1. For each destroyed rank in this unit, choose +1. So we get Vicious. This unit may reroll any attack dice, and this unit rolls its highest attack die value. So just for people that are just getting into the game, what this means is that you'll always get to choose 1, and for each additional destroyed rank, you get another option, and it's you choose which one you want. So basically, just build whatever you need it to be based on how many ranks you've lost. Mance Rayder, Abel the Bard, is a enemy attachment. So first time we see this in Free Folk, the only time we see this in Free Folk, he will basically, after, I'll read the bomb bit first to make it clearer. So before deployment, attach Mance to an enemy infantry unit, ignoring the usual attachment limit. So basically, you pop him into an enemy unit, and then these rules apply to that unit. So camp followers. Each time this unit activates, it suffers 1 hit for each of its remaining ranks. So a fully ranked infantry unit will take 3 hits the first time it activates. Sabotage and subvert. So once per game, at the start of any turn, your opponent may deal this unit 1 wound. Remove this model. If they do, place 1 condition token on this unit, and it may not use orders or be the target for any tactic cards this turn. So there's a couple of interesting bits here, Mickey. So for Jarl, obviously now he ignores attachment limits, so it means he can pair into stuff and potentially make a supercharged outflanking unit. So that's quite nice to see him brought in line with the other outflank attachments. Battle scars, an amazing ability. Mance Rayder. Now, do we think that because of the additional points of attachments now, releasing some points and stuff, we'll see more Mance Rayder being played?
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about these in order. So Jarl, you're completely right. I'm less bothered by the outflank ability. Not saying that it doesn't matter. There's definitely a place for it. But the thing again that gets my blood absolutely pumping is the ignore attachment limits. He used to have it, then it got taken away from him. Sadness. Then it got given back. Hooray! Yeah, this is a good ability. Outflank's fine for a point. You can't complain. This is very comparable across factions. This is not particularly unique. But yeah, I think it's very good. And for Free Folk, it allows you to think, 3 attachments in 1 unit. Is that pretty crazy? And the answer is maybe it is when you've got 3 2-point attachments in your 6-point unit. So that is, get this. This is genuinely the most expensive unit that you can possibly imagine because it's a 12-point unit. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, there's things there, but obviously you're probably not going to do all of that. That's a bit pie in the sky dream world, but it's cool nonetheless. The Great Walrus, the Battlescar change really brought Battlescars up into contention as being a very playable ability and a very playable set of rules. And yeah, works really well in Cave Dwellers, extremely well in Cave Dwellers. When you're charging, you'll be able to choose the highest dice value. And then when you're getting down a rank where you want to be, getting rerolls and vicious just all the time is just lovely. So yeah, lots to say about the Great Walrus being pretty damn good. And it synergizes with other units because you can just share it onto them and give rerolls. And rerolls in Free Folk when you've got 4+ attack is better. So this is the thing where it's better than Insight. Rerolls is better when you're in a static attack than rolling highest dice if you're rolling on 4s. Because 6 dice on 4s is 3 hits. Highest dice rolls, 8 dice on 4s is 4 hits. With rerolls, you average on 6 dice 4.5 hits. So you are better off using the rerolls and the highest dice roll value if from a static position. If you've got other ways of doubling down on other pluses, it's different, but that's why we see the Great Walrus picked up a lot more than just the 1-point insights, because the sharing of that onto raiders and other things is actually beneficial as well. They're very playable in a lot of units, but obviously Cave Dwellers is where we see him mostly play. 2 very, very good, very playable 1-point attachments, can't complain. Mance Rayder. So again, the problem with Mance Rayder is not Mance here, but you've got to now contend with Mance Commander, Mance 4-point NCU, Mance 5-point NCU, and Mance Abel the Bard 2-point enemy attachment. That's 4 versions of Mance. You can only pick 1. You're probably not necessarily taking the commander very often anymore. The 4-point attack, the 4-point NCU is good, but if you've got enough points, you probably want to take the 5-point NCU. And if you got 2 extra points, I'm probably not going to be taking Mance Rayder, Babel the Bard, instead of the NCU 5-pointer, and that's kind of the problem. That being said, he's not bad. Like, Camp Followers is fine, doubling down with extra traps to, you effectively double down on these hits that kind of weaken units and make them weak enough to kill. And Sabotage and Subvert, if you've never seen Turncoats use it, it's very powerful. The problem is in Free Folk, we don't have necessarily very many of these big alpha strikes. And if you are, it's Mag and Mag Smash. So you're probably going to want to be putting a Panic token down. You can use it as a weaken token defensively if you wanted to, but realistically, you're probably using this aggressively for a big swing slam dunk turn, and we see that with turn cloaks with like Lights of Cassie Rock charges, right? You slam dunk a turncoat and then Cassie Rock charge them, and strange enough, that's pretty good. So yeah, Mance Rayder 2-point attachment though is very fine. He's not like a problem or anything like that, and it is definitely something I would consider bringing to the game, and is something I would definitely consider putting in lists if Mance doesn't appear otherwise. Yeah, like Mance, you're not ever saying this is a bad attachment. He's not bad. Again, it just comes up to weighing up the options of which Mance do you have, if any, and do you have the points to include this. I've used it over the years in competitive lists. I've won events with him. It's certainly not something I would ever sniff at. It's not a bad choice at all. So go out there and pick this up if you want to and play it. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you it makes every list, because it doesn't make every list. There is variation.
Yeah. And that's absolutely fine, right? Because that's the joy of the game, is the mix and match stuff, So that's done for attachments then. So we're now into commanders. So how we'll do this, Mickey, is what we'll do is I'll read the card for the commander. We won't go with the tactics deck, because we'll get you back to do a dedicated video based on just the tactics deck, because there's probably another 5 hours worth of recording there, just me and you talking about tactic cards. So what I'll do is I'll just read the card, and then I'll ask you basically what you think of them and what their playstyle adds and how it tweaks the Free Folk playstyle. So first up on the screen, we have Mance Rayder, King of the Wall. It comes with the order counter strategy. So when an enemy in short range uses an order where it's targeted by a tactics card, roll a die. On a 3+, cancel the effect of that order or tactics card. And it comes with Boisterous Charisma, which is an innate ability, can't be switched off. Each time this unit passes a panic test, target one enemy unit in short range, they become vulnerable or weakened. And he comes with Inspiring Presence, which is that the unit's morale stat becomes a 5 that he joins. And the cards on screen that you can refer to: Predictable Maneuvers, Long Plan, and Wild in Diplomacy. Mance Rayder, once upon a time he couldn't say his name without feeling sick. What was he looking like nowadays, and what's his play style?
Yeah, so he's still very much what he was, which is very control-y, very kind of like trying to make advantages out of these small things to really push for these greater advantages and control play style. Counter strategy obviously pretty good. We see that on Tyrion Commander right over in Styr, and yeah, like counter strategy is a good ability. Certainly something is very usable and playable, and something you should look to benefit from. Boisterous Charisma is a bit here nor there. I don't really care about it too much, but it is weakened tokens in Free Folk, which is pretty nice because they're otherwise quite rare. And I can see a Mance Rayder kind of like survivability, like hard to kill style list long. His cards, which we won't, as I say, go into detail, but being able to draw certain things from the deck, be able to control your opponent's movements and what they do. Just all of that making your opponent less efficient, making yourself more efficient at surviving, getting those slow efficiencies. Mance is not, he's not, S tier. I wouldn't call him S tier, but he's not like D tier. He's a solid mid-level commander. It's not a terrible option to pick up. He's fine. Yeah.
Awesome. And obviously he has a new sculpt coming from some of our tactics with his helmet on, which makes it really cool.
Yes.
Which could be
very much
the thing that pushes me to do Free Folk, just one model. We'll see. Watch this space.
That's really cool.
Next up, we have Tormund's Giantsbane. So he comes with the order Overrun. So when this unit surges forth, instead of surging forth, this unit performs one charge or march action, and he just gives the unit he's in Sundering. He comes with Devastating Impact, Counter Assault, and Rush for Aggression. Tormund Giantsbane is, I think it's safe to say he's a fan favourite from a fluff perspective. But how does he play? Are you playing him, and what does he add to the free folk?
So yeah, Tormund is a bit different because he's a quite aggressive piece, and free folk typically don't do well with those very aggressive things. On the whole, that's not to say that they can't do it; they just don't typically do it. That being said, I think Tormund is pretty cool. I actually think Tormund is more playable than ever now. I do think that free folk have, generally speaking, been playing high activations, and part of me does think that free folk can dip towards lower activation lists nowadays. So yes, I do think Tormund is definitely a playable option. Overrun is great, as we see it with the likes of Victarion and others when it works. And free folk, because of what they do and how they play, you can usually get this to work a little bit more because they play quite a heavy movement game. So Overrun is going to get more value, and Overrun on an attachment is way better than a card. And we have it here, so that's great. Sundering, well, we're just free Sundering on shit. Fens with Sundering, cool. Like, Follows a Bone with Sundering, awesome. Like, none of this is something to complain about. Even Spearwives with Sundering and already giving a vulnerable token out. That's something to be wary of and be very careful of. So yeah, like, all of that stuff, Tormund, likes all of these kind of units. And you can really mix and match how you play Tormund. You can put Mag in there for the tactics card synergies and just go, right, guys, we're running 7 activations. And the way we play this game is we run at the enemy. And we kill the enemy. And that's Tormund speaking to the guys. And then he goes, if anyone doubt, point to Big Giant Man. What does he say? And Mag pipes up and just says, Mag smash. So yeah, I think Tormund's fun. Tormund's fun commander to play around with and just think about. And one of the commanders that benefits most from the attachment points, because you can start to really buff up these units to really just be dangerous, which is what free folk lacked previously.
Awesome. So if you're looking for a commander to run forward and start slapping stuff, Tormund's your man.
Yep.
Next up, it's probably going to take us a bit more longer to get through this one because it's effectively a completely revamped commander for Season 6. So, Rattleshirt, Lord of Bones. So he comes with the order Trophy Hunter. When a friendly combat unit activates, search your tactics deck or discard pile for one of Rattleshirt commander's tactics cards and add it to your hand. Comes with the innate ability Trophy Collector. This unit may treat any Rattleshirt's commander tactics cards attached to friendly units within short range as also attached to them. And Intimidating Presence, which you've already seen. I don't need to read that card. It's a Rattleshirt, so he's had a bit of a revamp, and definitely one that can play well into his tactics deck now. So, do you want to sort of give us your opinion? We haven't done the Season 6 update, so you can get a bit more into it if you want to get a bit more into it.
It's all right. I think we'll leave it for the tactics card element, really, because a lot of his power comes through the tactics cards nowadays. What we will say is that tactics cards are incredibly easy to play with, only requiring you to do a wound in order to play them. And Rattleshirt can go and get them out of the deck, as we saw with Trophy Hunter. The other key thing with Rattleshirt's cards is you can chain them. You play one and you can play a second. So that Trophy Hunter ability to just go and get them and add them to your hand when things activate, well, guess what things activate? That's just a thing that happens. So yeah, incredibly easy to get these cards into hand and play them. And Rattleshirt is benefiting from them. Rattleshirt, to me, is almost problematically strong. But I'm not saying he's too strong or overpowered. When I say problematically strong, is that his strength, as it currently stands with his order and his own trophy collector ability, is that he's very, very efficient at getting these things out. And not only is he efficient at doing so, he's consistent. And consistency tends to be what leads to problematic game balance. That being said, are the buffs, which we won't go through the buffs fully, but are the buffs always worth it? Maybe not, actually. Maybe they're not too strong, so it's not really much of an issue. But I imagine Rattleshirt being very, very efficient, very, very consistent, and that is usually what creates strong things in the game. Yeah, You're going to see him picked up in. I mean, if you're running Rattleshirt Commander, you are 100% playing Bonelord Chosen, which, hey, it's not a bad decision, just like we talked about earlier with Renegades Eddard and Eddard's Honor Guard. Yeah, this is not a bad thing, and I think you'll be very happy with Rattleshirt Commander in Rattleshirt's Chosen, or Bonelord's Chosen. You know, what more can I say? There's very little more I can say about this other than I just think it's going to be good. It's going to be consistent, and it's going to be, even if it's not powerful, it's going to be fun to play. You know, and who doesn't just like playing cards? Like, the two things about, if you've ever played a card game, there's two things that people know about card games. We like drawing cards and playing cards.
Yeah.
The card game element, guess what? Rattleshirt lets you draw them, and they're very easy to play.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to getting the tactics deck. Obviously, by the time we get all these faction overviews out, it'll probably be a few months, so we'll start recording. So by that point, we'll hopefully start seeing little glimpses of what's coming. So it's a very interesting conversation to have, definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Next up, we have Harma Commander. So Vanguard Commander. She comes with the order, superior flanking. When a friendly unit in long range forms an attack, 4 roll an attack dice. If attacking a defender in the flank or rear, the defender becomes panicked and vulnerable. An enhancement ability which we've seen on her attachment version. And she comes with swift reposition, faint maneuver, and hit and run. Harma Commander. Is she benching the 2-point attachment? What does she add to Free Folk? What's her play style?
She is not benching the 2-point attachment. Let's put it like that. She still comes with the enhancement ability is obviously still there, and that's great. The reason I like Sentinel is because it's one of the only things that Free Folk have that reacts to range attacks. And she doesn't have that. So that does suck a little bit. But I mean, Harma Commander's fine. Like, superior flanking is good. It's 2 tokens on on a attack in the flank. Now, I hasten to add that could be a range attack, it could be a melee attack. It was only today that I saw someone using it to fire a giant spear thrower across the board into the flank of a unit that had turned round to face an outflank Jarl unit that came on, and he used superior flanking on the giant to give the giant spear thrower's attack panicked and vulnerable to the enemy across the board. Like, there are things like that you can do. She often suffers from the fact that it's all in the tactics cards, really. They're fine, they're good, they have synergies with Harma and Harma's units. They just don't really give you anything that you don't otherwise have. Like, it just pushes you further up the garden path of things you already were doing. And, like, that's fine, but it hasn't made them better. When I'm 11 out of 10 in something, you coming over and say, I've made you 11.1 out of 10, doesn't really matter. Whereas with the likes of Mance, with Tormund, with some of the other things we've seen, being able to take those things which are like the 5s and 6s out of 10 and give them like 5.5 or a 6 or 6 to a 7 or things like that matters, because it's improving areas where we struggled. Harma doesn't do it, unfortunately. Not that she's bad. Like, she's not bad. She's very playable. She's fine. Enjoy playing her. I've played her plenty. She just is, of all of the commanders, she just feels a little bit damp compared to the other options. Plus, you lose Harma attachment, and Harma attachment is the best thing that ever made. So, yeah, you do get the Harma's Bannerman now, of course, for just 1 point as the commander. But as I said, like, Harma attachment's so good that the Harma's Bannerman for 1 point doesn't even feel like that much of a boon if the tactics cards are not pulling their weight. So yeah, that's where I sit with that.
Okay, cool. Obviously, just a really, just a mobility commander, right? It's just this, as you say, stuff that you're already doing. Okay, cool. And then we have Styr, Magna Fem. So it comes with order Fem supremacy. After an enemy completes an attack on this unit, target the attacker. They suffer 1 panic test with -1 to their roll and +1 wound on failure for each remaining rank in this unit. So that's a -3 +3 if you're in a fully ranked unit. He comes with Iron Resolve, so this unit gains +1 to panic test rolls and suffers -1 movement failing panic test. He comes with the tactic cards, Bitter Demise, Styr's Vengeance, and Fen Defiance. Harry's Styr playing nowadays, and what's his sort of play style?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason when we talked about Fens earlier and talk about Styr's synergy with them, you look at those abilities and think, yeah, defensive unit or a little bit more defensive unit with Iron Resolve now, giving them 5 up morale with the -1 wound. Cool. And there are 4+ armor, and now they have Fen Supremacy. So those range attacks that don't strip a rank, range units typically having bad morale, lol, take a -3/+3, thank you. Splat goes a rank of their unit. That becomes a really dangerous unit. So all of a sudden you can sit there going, well, I'm going to taunt you and shoot me instead. And they look at you and go, but I don't want to shoot you. I really do not want to shoot you because I might die. And they go, fine, I'll take the weaken and shoot the piece of crap. And you go, cool, thanks. I'm getting value. Fen Supremacy is a really good order to share. You know, your opponent has a choice of 2 targets that they're going to charge at the end of the round. And you go, start the round, I'll coordination tactics on these 2 units and I'll share Fen Supremacy and Iron Resolve. And your opponent goes, oh, shit. Especially if they're already weakened or already had other effects going on, because there's a chance they might just explode themselves if they make the attack. And guess what? It makes the opponent less efficient. You're constantly posing problems to the opponent, and every time you pose a small problem to the opponent, there's a chance they make a bad decision or it doesn't pay out for them. And those small iterative problems grow and grow and grow into a cascade of issues. It's very strong, it's very powerful, and Styr is a component of that. His cards, of course, giving bonuses around that as well. Not as good as it used to be. Not as good as it used to be. You know, Season 3, Season 4 Styr was my boy. My real boy. The bit of demise change from Final Strike hurt. But you know what? Still perfectly good commander to play. Still very playable and enjoyable.
Yeah, nice. It says what you sort of say. He sounds more like a defensive commander, really. Sort of defensive with a little bit of offense in there.
Yeah, he's what I would call is that he's a how to word it, a fake commander. So he makes you think that he's a bit defensive, whereas actually he's secretly storing up all of his power to smack you with an uppercut when you least expect it. But you're gonna be tentative because he's a defensive commander, and he is a defensive commander, but then he just counterattacks you really hard.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. Next up we have the Weeper, Horrific Butcher. So the Order Grizzly example, we've seen this on his previous attachments, so I'm not going to read that one out again. He comes with weakened resolve, so each time an enemy engage with this unit fails a panic test, that enemy becomes weakened. And he comes with vicious as well, gives the unit vicious. Comes with the new bloody beheadings, price of failure, and cruel methods. The Weeper, what's he like as commander, and what does he add into the Free Folk roster?
So the Weeper's really weird, because the Weeper you look at in every metric, you just think this is probably pretty good. And then it just doesn't really work. And I can't really tell you why, because for reference, we won't go into the details of his cards, but Price of Fail and Cruel Methods are 2 decent cards. Like, they're good cards. Bloody Beheading, we also think, is a pretty good card. Grizzly example, Weaken Resolve, Vicious, these aren't terrible things. It just doesn't really work. It just doesn't come together and end up winning games. And you know what? I honestly can't really tell you why. And I think it's a lot to do with it's just not hugely proactive. You know, he doesn't have the auto 6 charges to be able to propel engagements and dictate engagements that other factions do. He doesn't have the synergies with other, doesn't have synergies with things like Bear Riders and stuff. So yeah, he just lacks any real direction. He just wants things to die and there to be panic tokens out there and for things to be killed. But guess what? So does everyone else.
So what is his sort of play style? Is he literally just pushed into the panic damage? Or at least trying to do that?
Yeah, pushing for panic damage and, you know, more panic. But again, like we know, no intim and things like that. He wants to play like the panicky games. He just wants panic tokens, and he wants to push a bit of aggressiveness, but this is actually comes back to the point is that he feels like he just doesn't have a direction. He just wants there to be fighting. And free folk are just not very good at there to be fighting everywhere, you know? That's just not what free folk are very good at. They're very good at winning an engagement by ganging up on somebody and killing them, and then moving on to those other engagements. Whereas lots of itty-bitty fights that we're just getting hit by big things and dying and then poking back with small sticks, that's just not what free folk are about. So this is why I said that the direction lacks. The thing is, I would add to anybody watching, he is not a bad commander. I think he's a bit like Tormund in that he is going to benefit so much more from the extra attachment points. It's absolutely unreasonable because you now can run Rattleshirt attachment. You can run those Champions of Bone for the intims and stuff. And that actually might be where Weeper wants to go. I just don't know. I just don't know. And I can't put my finger on why. Simple as that.
Cool. Well, okay. Well, maybe hopefully then we'll get one day when we get to season 7, you have all the answers for it, and then it'll change in time.
The thing is, I enjoy playing him. I just get halfway through a game and I'm like, God, this is way more harder than it should be. Yeah, he's just one of those guys, and I can't tell you why.
Okay, cool. Next up, we have the Great Walrus, Lord of the Frozen Shore. So it comes the affiliation of Frozen Shore, making his unit a Frozen Shore unit, which affects some of the tactic cards. He comes with Go Down Fighting, so each time a rankless unit is destroyed, one enemy they engage with suffers 1 wound, and he comes with Hardened, so each time an enemy is performing an attack on this unit, after rolling defense dice, this unit blocks 1 hit for each of its destroyed ranks. One of the newer commanders for free folk. How is the Great Walrus? How does he play?
So the Great Walrus is he's obviously very based around Frozen Shore type units. He's a bit defensive. He's also got battle endurance, so he wants to play the long game. He's now got Walrus strength, giving the healing and condition token control. So I would say he's like a long game player, a bit more defensive, but he's not like uber defensive. Yeah, he's a bit of an odd one. He's always been a bit lackluster because ultimately battle endurance on free folk, which isn't very good. Because Sundering and Crit Blow are cool and all, but like if free folk units are surviving to round 5 or round 6 to get the Crit Blow and attack dice, then in most game modes we've already won. So, you know, and if not, then if we did play this card early, that unit's probably dead. You know, we're quite good at cycling units as free folk. So, you know, his card play and things like that, just, again, it's not that he's bad. He's not bad. It's just he doesn't really have a lot of proactive, I do this cool thing. You know, I do this interesting, good, powerful thing. They're just solid. And the thing is with solid is that sometimes solid just isn't really good enough in a competitive atmosphere. Because they're just not really proactive and dynamic. They're just, I will perform okay. And yeah, sometimes you want something a bit different. So yeah, like he's not bad. I'm not like the Great Walrus is trash. He's a terrible commander. Never run him. He just isn't very good. The big thing that also lets the Great Walrus down actually is his attachment as well. Go Down Fighting and Hardened. Like, especially the new Hardened as well. Like, they're just not particularly interesting abilities to have. They're not particularly fun. They're not particularly engaging. And they're not particularly useful overall. I'm not saying they're bad. They're just like, they're not abilities that you're like, I am picking this because of Hardened or picking this because of Go Down Fighting. They almost feel like, yeah. They almost feel like secondary abilities, and it's like having 2 secondaries and nothing major. And it doesn't even push a particular theme in his own attachment.
Yeah, it seems like quite a counter-synergistic choice, well, isn't it? Because it's hard and stop the hits, but then you want to be losing ranks to use to Go Down Fighting. So it's sort of like they're pulling against each other, really.
Yeah. And again, they're not bad, but like they were just like we've already seen with a lot of other attachments in what's going on and the cool things you can do. Because I will add that I find it very exciting to be able to mix and match these things. But like one of the things you could do is put Harma's Bannerman in with the Great Walrus, and so you've got go down fighting and hard, and then regroup and reform, retreat to heal up more to allow you to go down fighting. But the hardened stops you from ever being killed at one rank, so you've always got the combos, and you can kind of build this cool little package going forward. But it doesn't actually do much. You just don't die. And unless you're killing your opponent, what is the point? because you can play these don't die mechanics with other things and they're better at not dying. So why would I do it with this? That's really where this sits and where the problem of this sits a little bit, in that he just doesn't do enough for the theme he appears to want you to play.
But on the plus side, though, his normal attachment's amazing with a battle scar. So, in the plus
side, exactly. Yeah,
you can always get to use him.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Next up, we have Varamyr Commander. Now, there's a lot of stuff on screen. I don't need to read any of this because we've gone through it already, because nothing changes other than the fact he goes down to 2 points as a commander.
We've already talked about him as a unit, and we've already talked about Wolfpack. We've already talked about the cat. I think the really important aspect to just remind people of, if you take Varamyr Commander, you have to take the cat and the Wolfpack. So you're talking an 8-point package that you just have to have for 3 activations. When he was 0 points as a commander, this was bonkers level, insane, stupid. He's now 2 points, and it's very playable. It's good. I actually think like his cards are really what give Varamyr Commander the power level. There's kind of like what we refer to as like a Greebies. I always call it a Greeblies list. But all the shitters list, animal list, Varamyr and friends, whatever you want to call it. But where you just run Skinchangers, where you run the cat, the wolf pack, Varamyr, you've got Borroq and Borroq's Boar, you've got a bunch of other just shit on the board, and just everything is a quagmire of units to kill, to get through, to kill your opponent, to table a free folk player, or to kill them, to get objective points, or even just to get to objectives. You can play those lists, and those have historically always been very good in free folk. And yeah, Varamyr pushes that kind of archetype, and almost problematically so, in that he's probably just the best commander at the mass activation style thing, because he can do it while also having points left over for the likes of a mag in the list. And still have the high activations. It's what I've been doing with my Varamyr list. And
that's the good thing about Varamyr, though, right? Is that he really does master that mass activation list.
Yeah.
And he does it really well, and we see him do it with tournaments.
As a competitive player, you get this. He does and I'd almost argue problematically well, because you end up running horde lists with lore-wise someone who hated people and was shunned by people. And yet he runs the board lists better than anyone else nowadays, which seems ironic. Varamyr probably is just de facto one of our best commanders. And that's fine. You are going to have a best commander. The problem is he might actually be the best commander for any type of archetype in free folk. And that's the bit where I think there might be a bit of an issue design space-wise with him. Not, again, play him, enjoy him, have fun with him. I just think he might actually need a bit of a tweak to move him more in line with making him good at what he's supposed to be good at, and allowing that to be the thing he's good at, not everything.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Next up, we have a commander that completely changes the way that your list is going to be built. So, Mag the Mighty as a commander, he comes in for 5 points. We don't need to go with the card. The card's exactly the same. What we do need to talk about is the Chieftain of the Giants. So, you may select Mag the Mighty as your commander. If you do, his points cost becomes 5 instead of 9. And for each unspent extra attachment point, reduce Mag's point cost by 1. So if you don't spend any of your attachment points, you're going to get Mag for 1 point. what we haven't put on screen is that Mag also completely changes your deck as a free folk player. You'll lose your tactics deck, and he brings in his own cards to basically works around monsters. And when me and Mickey get into the tactic cards, we'll go through that with you as well. But he gives you a completely different tactics hand, Mickey, doesn't he? So, do you want to talk to us a bit about Mag and the way he sort of plays the game now?
Yeah, so Mag is playing a different game because you lose again, without going through the detail in the deck, the base deck in Free Folk being very infantry focused, gone out the window. Completely new deck. It's a monster focused deck, nearly entirely based around monsters and giants. So you're running a Mag commander list, and this is why we always talk about Mag commander. A Mag list is actually a very different beast than a Free Folk list because you've basically changed the base deck. And base decks are a big part of faction's power level. So Mag Commander, you're running lots more giants, beasts. You're probably going to be running very few infantry, if any at all. You're looking to run giants. You're looking to run monsters to get the benefit of this. And yeah, Mag the Mighty, you're getting him for a reduced cost. He's very good at the reduced cost prices, but you obviously get the change deck, and the change deck really does dictate the power level of Mag, more so than actually Mag himself in these type of lists. Lots of synergy with other giants and monsters, being able to give extra actions to other people and being able to utilize extra actions from things dying, etc. Mag Commander is a choice that you have to make before you do anything else. Like you can't just say, "Oh, I'll make this a Mag Commander list." No. Before you've even begun to build a list, decide, are you going to make one with Mag as the commander? Because if you do, all of the decision making is completely different. Everything you're doing is completely different, and you have to adapt and change to that change, because otherwise you're not playing the game properly. You're not building lists properly because you've not considered what that difference is.
How exciting is that, though?
It's huge because it is a completely, and when it first came out, it was a completely this is insane. I'm now building with the same faction choices, but the deck I am playing is completely different, and it means the choices I have are completely different. He actually sucked when he first came out as a commander because he cost too much. He still cost 9 points, which just made lists very difficult to build with him. But they reduced his points cost down to 5, and now they've kind of done the similar kind of thing with the attachment cost points as well here, reducing him down to 1. The truth is he always costs 5 points, and people think, oh, he costs 1, but actually he always costs 5 because every point you save on the attachments is a point knocked off Mag. So he's always going to effectively be 5 points in what is effectively a 44-point game. One thing to note, though, is he isn't 5 points, and this is really important when we talk about game modes. Here we stand. He would cost 1 point. The list you have is only 40-point list, not 44 like everyone else's would be. And specifically, Mag cost 1 point, gets 3 bonus points for Here We Stand's game mode for controlling quadrants, which means Mag the Mighty would only be a 4-cost unit, which means Mag, your commander, wouldn't actually be able to control a segment on his own. There are reasons why that is important within a competitive list build, and there are reasons why you would not do this, and there are actually reasons why Mag lists in Here We Stand in particular would probably have actually seen a downturn in playability and power level. But we're talking about very unique competitive things that we won't go into the real network of nitty-gritty right now. But yes, Mag is quite a popular commander. He's been the most popular commander pickup in Free Folk for some time, I think, because people just like playing him. He's cool, he's interesting, he's very different. And if you've not played Mag Commander and you're a Free Folk player, play Mag Commander. Learn, play, adapt, think about how the game works. You will be a better player because of it. And enjoy the game because he does bring some enjoyable stuff for him. There is nothing better than watching a giant like Wun Wun die, then Mag getting to charge and then make another attack, and then opening the round and making another attack, and then charging something else, and suddenly bloody slaughter everywhere. You gotta love it. Also really likes Varamyr, because Varamyr brings a bunch of monsters. Also really likes Borroq and Borroq's Boar, because it's another monster. And all of these monsters can benefit from like half the tactics deck. So, yeah.
Awesome. Great stuff, mate. Really good stuff. Yeah, let's say, as an older free folk player, newer free folk players, if you just come and take your first steps into the game and you want a faction you can do different things with, this is probably the faction for you, because you've got so many options you can sort of muck about with and play different styles. It's really good. Mag's just a great model as well. Cool. That's all of our commanders done, Mick. So, we're going to get into the NCUs now. So, on screen, we have Lady Val at 4 points, Lady of the Wilds. Each time a Lady Val claims a zone, you may replace that zone's effect with one friendly combat unit, performs one maneuver or retreat action. Then Crasta, ally of convenience at 4 points, refuge and supplies. Once per game, at the start of any turn, you may restore 2 wounds to one friendly infantry unit. Each time Crasta claims a zone, you may replace its effect with draw 1 tactics card and restore 2 wounds to one friendly infantry unit. Infantry being a keyword there. And then Styr, Iron Fisted Tyrant, 4 points, Fury of the Fens. So it's influence ability, which means that when he claims a zone, attach his card to a combat unit until the end of the round. So while influencing a friendly unit, that unit's melee attacks gain Sundering, and it is treated as having +1 rank for attack dice. So yeah, obviously Val being a massive, well, all 3 of these NCUs have been a big choice in the past, but Lady Val seems to be still quite popular. What are we saying about the NCU, Sweet?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with Lady Val. Interesting statistic for you, and let's see if you know this one, Grant. Do you know which NCU on stats was the biggest percentage pick rate based on the factions? So if you had to say, which Tywin is in 90% of Lancer list, for example, is the most in its own faction list, more so than any other NCU appears in its own faction list.
Lady Val?
It is Lady Val. Yeah. Lady Val is synonymous with free folk. Every giant list will run Lady Val, guaranteed. Again, we'll go into reasons why that is later on. A lot of the non-giant lists will run Lady Val because movement is very strong, and movement is actually what tends to win you games. And movement is reliable. Movement is, you get to control movement, and movement requires no dice rolls. So movement is reliable, it wins you games, and it's something that is just predictable. As a result, Lady Val is incredibly good, a fantastic NCU. I can't think of many NCUs that if any faction got to take, they would take. Lady Val would be pretty much taken, I'm 90% sure, in every single faction in the game. We saw it with the likes of Varys, and Varys being synonymous with the game Baelish for some time. Lady Val would be up there if she was neutral as well. 100%. Probably the best NCU in the game, hands down.
If she was in Greyjoys, I'd take her. To be fair, anywhere I'll take her. Just that extra maneuver action is and retreat.
Genuinely,
solid.
The only list I can even think about that might not take her is a heavily cav-based Targ list, which has already got quite a nice suite of NCUs at the moment. And even then, it's debatable. I probably would still take her. And even then, you're talking about a list that doesn't need any more movement, and I still think it probably would get taken. So yeah, insane. Crasta up next. So Crasta used to be able to heal giants. That's the long and short of it. And Crasta was incredibly strong when he could, because it made killing giants a miserable, miserable affair. He got toned down, so he's now infantry only. And that inadvertently had a bit of a negative impact on the bear cavalry, because it means he no longer healed them. And actually, the real killer, obviously, when we talked about Harma's Vanguard, he can't heal them. Healing the bear cav would be nice, and I think that it's something they should probably think about considering adding back onto Crasta. Healing the Vanguard feels essential, and the fact that he can't sucks.
Yeah.
Like, it just sucks. Which is, again, why, like, those Vanguard is such a poor choice. Because there just isn't any synergy and no support. Crasta, very playable. Zone replace to heal 2, draw a card, great. Start of turn, mini Tycho effect, heal 2, great. Crastas are just a reliable NCU in those infantry-based factions. You can't go wrong with a zone replace that does healing and draws some cards. You really can't. What I like about Crastas specifically, actually, is the ability in Free Folk where, a lot of people want to open swords, and in Free Folk, historically, there's been a good chance that you opening swords won't do anything, or you'll kill yourself faster than you'll kill your enemy. But so being able to take Crasta to swords to block it, but then heal, actually slows the tempo of the game down. It slows the death rate of the game down. And that is really powerful in being able to slow the game down, which units are removed, which means you'll probably win with game mode objectives in mind. I remind people that back in the day, admittedly, Crasta was different back then, but I won US Nationals with Free Folk where I had less, I think it was 36 kill points across 7 games. I was killing less than 6 points of unit per game. And I remember in one of the games, I killed like 10 or 12 points of units. So, like, there are games where I basically killed very little. And you can win events and win games by not having to kill. At least you could. Don't know if that's as true as it used to be. The game is not always about killing. The game is about your game modes and objectives. So, and Crasta can play into that very much so. But he can also play the aggressive if he wants. He's just a good NCU.
Know your game modes.
Yeah, know your game modes. Styr up next, and Styr is unfortunate because Styr, he just doesn't really do anything. Sundering is one of the most common keywords we can, apart from Vicious, Sundering's quite a common keyword in Free Folk anyway. We also get it on a base deck card in Overwhelming Assault. There are a few things with Sundering already, and it gives Sundering. Cool. Okay, that's fine. It's not like, I'm not going to say that's a bad thing. It isn't a bad thing, but it's like fine. I'm not particularly interested in this as a slot for just Sundering. That would be terrible. His next ability is +1 rank for attack dice. At most in Free Folk, that might as well read like +1 attack die.
Yeah.
But it doesn't synergize with being on maximum ranks. So you can't use it to double down on maximum ranks to give you an extra dice that way. If it was bonus and courage, like if you're at max ranks gain 1, you might see this get played on Giants or even like Mag the Mighty sometimes. Yeah. But you'd see it play on Spearwives and things like that as well. But as it stands, they're just, unfortunately, when we've just had like the best NCU arguably in the game and a very playable, good NCU in 4 points already, with this being the third NCU, you are looking at this. Just compare it to the 2 other ones we've got on screen, right? Like, this just feels a bit wet noodle compared to the other 2 you've already got. We've already got another bunch of NCUs to go through. Yeah. Styr just doesn't make the cut. Sorry.
No, it's an influence NCU. It's the other influences we're going to see in a minute that potentially do a lot more than he does for influence ability. So you've got Mance Rayder, Artful Tactician, 4 points, Skillful Preparations, influence ability. So when this unit claims zone, attach a card to a combat unit until the end of the round. While influencing a unit, each time that unit activates or is targeted by a tactics zone, before resolving that zone's effect, you may draw 1 tactics card. And the 5-point Mance Rayder, Deceptive Bard, Intrigue and Subterfuge. So once per game, when enemy NCU activates, that NCU loses all abilities until the end of the round. Haha, take that, Joffrey. And then Disrupt Communication, Influence. While influencing an enemy unit, your opponent may not target that unit with tactic zone effects or influence abilities. And Lady Darla for 4 points. Spearwife Council. Each time Darla claims a zone, perform the following based on the zone she claimed. So on the ground, 1 enemy becomes weakened. on the bags, instead of removing a condition token, target one enemy engaged with that unit. They suffer 1 hit plus 1 hit for each remaining rank in this unit. And the letters, instead of drawing cards, look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's tactics deck. You may discard one of those cards, then place the remaining cards on the top of the tactics deck. Yeah, 3 different NCUs there, 2 influences, 2 versions of Mance and Mance's wife. What we're saying?
Yeah, so Mance skillful preparations is fine. Like drawing tactics deck card is, I mean, so any game that allows you to draw more resources, to have more resources in your hands to play them and to get benefits from them is good. Mance Rayder 4-point NCU is a very reliable NCU. He will do the job he's supposed to do. You literally cannot complain whatsoever about Mance 4-pointer. The only reason you probably don't see him as much played is purely because he doesn't bring like extra utility or extra kind of like, he doesn't counter things. He's just giving you more cards. There is nothing wrong with that, and Mance NCU is not bad for 4 points. There just might be other better options available. But like, if you don't have better options, you haven't bought boxes, etc., and you've got Mance 4-pointer, by all means play him. He's not going to be bad. He's not a bad decision. Play it. It's completely fine. Like, he's one of those ones which is like, he's a solid 6 and 7 out of 10, like very playable, perfectly fine, just not necessarily powerful. And sometimes in lists we're looking for power rather than looking for consistency. So that's your Mance. Mance 5-pointer, Intrigue and Subterfuge is pretty good, as it turns out. Just having a Lannister base deck card on an NCU once per game, yeah, sure, pretty good. That side of it is nice, and it does, as you say, shut down some of those annoying NCUs like the Othels, the Joffreys of the world. And if your opponent's really silly, they might activate Tywin too early, and then you can shut down Tywin for the rest of the round. Haha, can't use it this round on the round that it matters. But, you know, yeah, he's going to be good against those kind of like, those things you really don't want to suffer lots of wounds from, or that are incredibly annoying to have to play around and against as a free folk player. His Disrupt Communications is really strong. We see this with a few other NCUs in the game. You know, you've seen the Stark one, you've seen this with like Ed 5, basically. And yeah, it only works on enemy units, not friendly as well, which, so you can't use this to protect yourself. But this is insanely good against those Assault Orders commanders that want to propel the likes of Gregor and things into combat. You can just say, nope, you're not having any extra attacks this round. You're just going to get your 1 attack. Suck it. Play the game like everyone else. And that's very good. Mance 5-point is, you are paying that extra point, obviously, over a 4-point NCU, but generally speaking, any competitive player will tell you it's worth it, and I would expect this of one of your 2 lists in a 2-list format.
Stopping a unit being able to be targeted by tactic zone stops from the movement, stops the healing. It's really, really strong. I've been on the receiving end this a few times now, and it can be quite taxing and frustrating not being able to heal a unit you really want to heal. It's like playing against Marcells.
Yeah. Also influence abilities, which is probably not that big a deal, but there are some little influence abilities that are quite important for opponents to get out on certain units. And that can be quite devastating for them as well. It's quite unique because you think there's all these other things you want to stop first, but actually it's actually quite a small number of things, but it's a small number of impactful things. Some people like Lyanna and Caitlyn from Starks, Ramsay Snow in Bolton's. You've got Ghost of Highheart in Brotherhood Without Banners. Beron in Greyjoy. Holy hell, that's good to switch off. Yeah. So yeah, there are a few little of these options, and yeah, they're actually, again, in a competitive atmosphere, this is actually quite powerful. But in your average tabletop game, this probably drops the power level a little bit, purely because you probably just won't see these things as often anyway. But yeah, really, really good NCU 5-pointer. Love it. 4-point Lady Dalla. I took Lady Dalla to the Invitational, and I don't regret the choice. However, what you have to start to ask yourselves is, where in your list builder does Dalla come? She's incredibly unique. Weaken tokens from taking the crowns is cool. Free folk, generally speaking, don't put out a lot of weaken tokens, so that is really cool. The bags to not remove a condition and just do a bunch of hits doing engaged. Really cool. Like it. And being able to draw your opponent's cards and discard them rather than drawing your own cards is really cool as well. That being said, Dala is a little bit of like one of these, I think all of these things are really cool, but they're just not very consistent because the value on them can be really difficult. Taking the bags, and if there's nothing engaged and just not getting the hits, well, that sucks. Taking letters, and when you really needed cards, but you've only got Dala left, and you don't get to choose, you have to draw from their deck, not yours. So like that can be a bit of a killer. And the weaken on the panic check is about the nicest thing, but like remember, we have good replacement zone NCUs. The Crown is generally speaking the worst zone. Irony, we're the faction that Crowns is best against. So we don't really want to be taking Crowns to give our opponent a panic zap and a weaken token. We'd rather just replace it with a move or a peel, probably. And a weaken token you can roughly equate, and tokens can generally be equated maths wise. It's very dubious exactly where they sit, but like a competitive player might quote a token as about being worth 2 wounds against your average unit. There are obviously variations of that, but Craster heals 2. So really, are you losing anything from that? Not really. Like I'm not saying Dala's bad. I ran her at the Invitational. I don't regret the choice, but I ran her over Lady Val. And if I go back and would I change Lady Val? Would I change Dala into Val? The answer is yes, 100%. And that's where the problem Dala has is that she's just not good in comparison to the other choices. She is probably, of the 4-point NCU suite, she's probably the 4th or 5th NCU. Yeah. One ahead of Styr. She's probably on about a level with 4-point Mance. And as you'll see when we come across the next set of NCUs, there are some really good 4-pointers coming up still.
Yeah. But as you say, she's playable, which is all you can ask for, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's playable. I actually took in my free folk lists, and I didn't do that well, remember, just bear that in mind. But in my 2 free folk lists, I took 6 NCUs. And when I say I took 6 NCUs, I mean I took 6 NCUs. I packed 6 NCUs. Each of my 2 lists had 3 different NCUs in. So, there's not many factions you can probably say that about.
No, it is really good. Again, it's testament to, playing the game more, isn't it? And the more you play the game, the more you understand how NCUs work, how the attachments work, how the units work, all the synergies within it. So, yeah, I mean, it's just nice. You've got the option to run stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Okay. So next up, our last 2 NCUs, we have Jon Snow, Turncloak Crow for 4 points. He comes with Northern Resilience, which is an influence ability. While influencing the unit, it gains +1 to morale test rolls and suffers -1 wound from failing panic tests. So basically what you've got there is Iron Resolve on a stick. And it comes with Southern Discipline. So once per game, at the start of any round, you may search your tactics deck or discard pile for 1 coordination tactics or regroup and reform tactics card and add it to your hand. Shuffle your tactics deck. Ygritte, Kissed by Fire, 4 points. Spearwife's Guile, another influence ability. So while influencing a friendly unit, that unit gains +1 move and ignores the hindering and rough keywords. While influencing an enemy unit, that enemy suffers -1 movement and triggers swordly charges on rolls of 1 or 2. So if you influence the enemy unit or a friendly unit, so you're talking a bit about swapping attachments around. So I imagine this is where we're going to see that being done a little bit more efficiently for the points, right?
Yeah. So this is where Jon Snow really, I mean, can we just point out, like, he originally had the Southern Discipline, and that was basically it. He then got an influence ability where he gave a unit +1 morale, and that was cool. Became playable, but it wasn't great. It was amazing. It was like fine. He then got the next buff with -1 wound from failing panic tests, and as you worded it quite well, it's like Iron Resolve on a stick, except it's not Iron Resolve. It's +1 morale rather than panic, which has a small effect on certain things in the game. And can I just point out, it isn't Iron Resolve. Yeah. So it stacks with Iron Resolve. That is where this suddenly was like, okay, because now you can put this on Styr Commander, and he's taking -2 wounds from failing panic tests. Sure, fine. I don't give a shit if I failed my panic test. Did I take any wounds? Probably not. Awesome, cool. Like that stuff's just awesome. Like, I mean, Jon Snow influence ability is really cool, and we haven't really talked about the once per game. Once per game, being able to just cycle through either regroup and reform, so that's wound management cards and attachment management cards, the fun bit of Free Folk, and coordination tactics, copying abilities. The what did I say? Yes, fun bit of Free Folk. He just brings more of the fun bits back from your graveyard or your discard pile, or worst comes to worst, you haven't drawn them yet, he'll go and get them for you so you can play them. Jon Snow is he's just everything these infantry style lists might want. Reliable, cool, interesting, fun. He makes you have more fun because he makes you play the things that are fun generators more often. I like Jon Snow. I like Jon Snow NCU a lot, and I didn't like him when he got released. Thought he was a bit crap because he only did the one thing. And it just wasn't good enough. And now he comes with an influence that's cool. He comes with the ability still that's really cool. Like, yeah, Jon Snow is just a solid, nice 4-point NCU. And again, we've now come across 4-point NCUs that are probably just better than Dalla and Styr. And Dalla's clearly better than Styr, in my opinion. And this is why you don't see these played very often, because this is 4-point NCUs that you can clearly see are good in Mance, in Jon Snow, in Val, in Craster. You might run Dalla in the more cavalry style lists, but they're just not very common.
Yeah.
Or even giant styles.
Yeah.
Ygritte, another decent 4-point NCU. It's up there. Probably fallen off the bandwagon a little bit with the traps changes. But being able to give a unit +1 and ignore hindering and rough, huge. Not dangerous. Sadness. But being able to give your units extra movement is really strong, and ignoring those anti-reroll terrain type is really, really important, or anti-movement type terrain types. So yeah, like really, really cool, really, really good. I like Ygritte and CU. She's just an extra movement in the right place at the right time can go a long way to helping your units just achieve more.
Mm-hmm.
And you're getting your rerolls on your chart on your attack dice as well, which is really important.
Yeah. So when it stacks some of the other abilities we've seen, like enhanced mobility and stuff, it really ramps up the speed you can get there, right?
Yeah, definitely. And then the opposite side, which is the negative enemy effect, which I really like, the fact that you've got this kind of like, I make me faster or you slower. The negative movement speed is a pretty heinous ability. This is the absolute bane of certain players' lives over the years. Taking movement speed away from units that don't have much movement speed to start with is a very good way to make your opponent cry. You used to win or lose games based on clever Ygritte placement in the early games, in the early days of really powerful Mance as well. Mance was obscenely strong. I'm not going to sit here and say he was not just broken, but Ygritte just pushed that to 11 in some cases, along with traps. And I mean, there's a whole thing here which you can make someone's day miserable by Ygritting them towards the start of the round. The moment they do an action, you can trap them for -1 move. And if you ever did a wound with the Frozen Shore Hunters, it's another -1 move. So they would net a total of -3 movement. That means that your 5-inch maneuver cavalry does a 2-inch maneuver followed by a 2 + D6 charge.
Yeah. The champs of the stag do a 1-inch move, a 2-inch march.
Yep. And if you're playing Dance with Dragons, your movement becomes 2 when you pick up an egg. So you can make things movement 0 with reliability. And that is I've done that myself. Putting Champions of the Stag will go and pick up a token on a bog. Now they're down to 1 inch of movement. And then every start of round, first thing you do is you take the zone or whatever, put a grit on the Champions of the Stag. They're now a 0-inch movement. So as long as you don't go within 6 inches, they literally can never get close enough to you to do anything. So you just play the rest of the game against a Baratheon player where they're just down a unit of champions of the stag. Yes, they might be scoring them victory points, but it's 8 points that they are spending not killing you, where you're just killing the rest of their unit and the rest of their list. Yeah, it's downright disgusting when it happens, and the number of times I've hurt not just Baratheon players but other players on Dance with Dragons with these styles is too many times. Yeah, also -1 move doesn't seem like a lot, but like pushing a charge from like a 3 to a 4, you'd think twice about that, wouldn't you? I mean, you play Victarion now, right? So you just go auto 6, who cares? But like but like, you know, if people don't think about this, they can position themselves to be like, oh, this isn't going to be an auto win with a 6. Yeah. You know, cool, yeah, but now you're -1 move, so you're actually an inch short.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to reposition before doing the thing you wanted to do. It just makes me play the movement game more, and I like movement. Can you tell?
I like moving. It's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, mate, that is the end of the free folk stuff. We've literally covered everything that free folk could ever run. So normally at the end of these conversations, I'll say to I'll ask my guest a little bit about how they feel about some of the season 6 changes, but we've covered most of them. And if I ask you how you feel about not being able to run neutral commanders in free folk, you're going to tell me I never could grant you full.
Yeah. So I would say I'm really disappointed that I still can't run neutral commanders in free folk. I really thought that this would be the patch where they'd bring neutral commanders into free folk. But alas, I was wrong. Oh, woe is me. However will I cope?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that Vargo hope list has just gone down the Swanee for you.
Oh yeah, that Vargo hope list. Yeah, it's hugely disappointing that I can't run the Vargo hope list, and I'm really disappointed that I won't be able to do that anymore. Alas, what can we possibly do? We'll have to just live with it. We'll have to learn from it. We'll have to move on. Oh, woe is me. However will I cope?
Perfect. Okay, so the question I can ask you that I do ask people is, so a brand new player just sat here for the last 4 hours and listened to us talk about free folk. If they're not convinced at this stage of the game, what makes free folk so good, and how would you sell it to a brand new player?
Monsters, giants, fun stuff, dogs, bears, boars, cats, wolves, eagles, men and women with sticks. Build your own bear, you know, being able to move things around and share abilities, and the never-ending outcomes of just like, ooh, jigsaw puzzles. You know, what more is there to like? And to be honest, you know, if they've sat through this much, they've clearly got a problem, because they could have been doing many better things with their lives. Not listening to me is the main thing that could be better with their lives. But let's be honest, right? If there's one thing that's going to sell someone on free folk, and if there's one thing that's going to bring players in, it's not the movement. It's not the cool sharing of abilities, although that is cool and awesome. It's not the chariots. It's not the cool cave dweller savages. It's not followers of Bone and Bonelord's chosen. No, the thing that brings people to free folk is Mag Smash.
Mag Smash, indeed. Awesome. Okay, dude. Well, mate, thanks so much for coming on and talking to me about free folk, man. Obviously, there's no better person in the world, I feel, to come and talk to me about free folk. You've been playing these guys from the outset. As I said at the beginning, you played these guys when they've been good. You played them when they were rubbish, and you've always managed to get results. So I feel like, as a new player coming into the game that wants to play free folk, this is probably where they should start, just to get a feel for what it all does. And I really do appreciate you spending the time, mate. We've been talking for 4 hours a quarter now on free folk.
Christ.
Yeah. Obviously, just as a disclaimer, when me and Mickey first jumped on to start recording, Mickey asked how long we think we'd need to record it, and we said 2 hours, I think. But I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? Is that we're both passionate about the game, we both enjoy it, and actually, fact, mate, if I didn't have work tomorrow, I'd quite happily sit here for another 4 hours with you and talk to you about the game, other factions. But you know, that's the way this game is, isn't it? It's just the community. The community is so nice to be a part of, and you know, you are part of that, and it's great to chat about the game with you. So yeah, thanks,
Rob.
No, you're welcome, mate. You're welcome. And I do really do appreciate your time, mate. I know you're a busy man.
No worries.
And for people, thanks for everyone for sitting with us for 4 hours. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed some of the insight. That we've gone quite deep with some of this stuff, which has been really, really enjoyable. If you've liked what we've done, please do like the video and share it among your friends. And if you do like it enough to, want to support us a little bit more, do subscribe and hit the bell notification. For the meantime, I guess we'll sign off with Mag Smash, right?
Mag Smash.
Cheers, Ricky.